powered by Riverside FM.
Is Batman a cop? In my opinion, no, but some adaptations make this tougher to answer. Take 2009's Batman Arkham Asylum. In the opening sequence, Gotham's cops use the iconic bat signal to call him in like an officer. In the following scenes, the Caped Crusader works alongside detectives as they escort the Joker for processing. Despite presenting as a private vigilante, he carries out police procedure and is seemingly given the same qualified immunity. So if he plays by their rules, what makes Batman different from your regular police officer? Perhaps his customized body armor, specialized training, and gadgetry. But even those, with each passing year, move from the realm of fictional superhero toys to real police instruction and equipment. This question isn't a put-down of Arkham Asylum, but rather an interesting observation considering its developer, Rocksteady Studios. Before they became best known for the Arkham series, and more recently Suicide Squad killed Justice League, their first game was actually about playing as a police officer, one with the same background and tools as Batman, but set in a world far from the comic book fun of Gotham and more ripped from the headlines. Although this heightening of reality could lead to uncomfortable premise, Rocksteady leans into the absurdity, creating a satire of police militarization that cheekily revels in power fantasy. Despite Rocksteady finding success with Arkham Asylum and all their games since, the triumph hasn't translated into a reappraisal for their first game. A shame considering that even by today's standards, where shooters come in all shapes and sizes, this stands out as unconventional. It's questionably a cab, but absolutely fab. On this episode of Bullet Time, we look at Rocksteady Studios' 2006 shooter, Urban Chaos Riot Response. Man, this is going to be a weird episode because, like, the last episode that me and Snake recorded, which was on Monday, also kind of like... Because basically Snake, in a weird way, has ended up on what has now become, quote, the police brutality mini-series.
It was only a joke, but it's a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good... Well, it's much like... like a good joke, it's based somewhat... like Homer Simpson famously said, it's funny because it's true. Because, yeah, we did Punisher on Monday with Stoke Matty, and now we're doing this today, and then at some point in the next few weeks, we're going to record Judge Dredd versus Death. So we're doing a lot of PS2 era police brutality bangers.
A lot of I Am the Law.
Yeah.
It was funny though, because I just kind of noticed the lineup of episodes I was on. I just sent James like a message just kind of asking, why am I on 3 things about police brutality? And it was totally unintentional. Yeah. But now it's rolling with it. I'm on the police brutality pod.
We're going to be doing Ready or Not for the last episode of Bullet, and they will literally have to be the last episode of Bullet Time because I don't think anyone's going to listen to us after that. But yeah, actually, I mean, I don't know. I haven't.
Ready or Not has fans, and you know,
Ready or Not, it does definitely has fans. Yeah, that's true.
To bring it back to the game we're talking about today, you know, Ready or Not is inspired by cult classic SWAT 4, and this game kind of feels like SWAT 4 on bloody crank. This game feels like a mad version of that game.
In fact, this game has a weird lineage also with SWAT 4 as well, which I can get into a little bit, but first things first, I'll say, hey folks, welcome to Bullet Time, the video game podcast about the shooters that missed their marks. Back again in the pod hut to talk about an FPS game from the PS2 era, which we haven't done, I want to say, since we covered... Was Black the last time we talked about a PS2 FPS game? I'm sure there must be one.
Well, we did Time Splitters.
Oh yes, all the Time Splitters games. Yeah,
but those did become multi-plat as it went along.
Yeah, I was thinking more of that generation.
This was multi-plat as well. Actually, this had an Xbox version.
It sure did have an Xbox version.
Yeah, that's the one I had as a kid.
Obviously, a PlayStation 2 release of Red Faction as well.
Yeah, we played the PC version with a Dash faction, or I did anyway.
Yeah, no, I also played Dash Faction on PC. But yeah, no, you are absolutely right, Sam. I forgot that, yeah, no, Red Faction would have been the last PS2 game that we covered on the pod. It feels like I haven't done one in a while. I think it's because I've recorded all of these out of order, and I've done a lot of like PC stuff, or I've done like a lot of Game Pass stuff, like really modern stuff, like at the moment. So going to this has been quite nice, just as a reminder of, oh yeah, this is this came out the year 2006, which is like peak bullet time era. Like 05 till like 2012 is the height of all the kind of like what is a shooter that missed its mark in regards to a lot of publishers wanting to get in on either like Call of Duty or Halo or BioShock, or just like these kind of odd offshoot experiments that never really went anywhere. And as me and Snake talked a little bit about on the last episode that we recorded as well, sort of trying to figure out like what separates, say, you know, a game which is considered like by all intents and purposes like a quote 10 out of 10 versus what we mostly cover, which is kind of swimming in sevens for the most part, which I would say that the game that we're talking about also kind of does that. But I guess we can dig into that a little bit more after I introduce who is on the pod, and you've already heard their voices a little bit. YouTube's very own Nicholas Angel, to Snakerer. Welcome back.
Hello. I'm Nicholas Angel. Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you are. You're Nicholas Angel from this game, but also weirdly, the what's it called film that came out? Hot Fuzz, which came out a few years after this.
I mean, the protagonist of the game is Nick Mason, but I made that mistake a lot as well because the name Nick has overtaken Nick Angel has overtaken Nick Mason quite easily in the lineage of famous fictional cops.
Nick Mason given the nickname Angel, which a bit of a
that was it. It was Nick Angel Mason. That's why it gets so weird.
Yeah, they call him like the Angel of the Police Force or something weird. Like
bloody Angel
of Hope Street or something after you saved the precinct.
That's it. Yeah, he's the Angel of Hope Street. God. Also joining us on this call is Sam from the YouTube channel Webster. Hello.
Hello. I have a level named after me in this game. That was weird.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I got that far. Which level is that?
It's like level 3 or 4, but it's like the Webster Street apartments.
Oh, that's the fire level, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the fire level.
Yeah. If that is third or fourth, I can't remember because there's level 3 is the one where you go through a building and you're saving people with, fireman in tow.
Yeah, I put it in as my profile name for the save file. And I was like, oh, that's neat. It pulls through your profile name for this level. And then I looked up, there was something I needed to double check, so I looked up a long play. And I was like, no, that's just the name of the level.
You had a little bit of ego there for a moment.
I can't remember if I've ever told you this story before, Sam, but I had that exact same thing happen to me with Metal Gear Solid 2, which is at the beginning of that game, it asks you to put in your name and your birthday. And my I guess to dox myself with the folks at home, my birthday is April 30th. And when you get to the part of the game where Jack and Rose are talking to each other, and she goes, "Do you know what day it is today?" April 30th. And I was like, Hideo Kojima, how did you manage to get this voice line into the game? That's exciting. And then looking it up, no, apparently that was just a random fucking date that he just pulled out of nowhere.
There's you thinking it's when they Psycho Mantis, and you're like, nope, that's not Psycho Mantis 2.0, that is just a coincidence.
Yeah, it is just the world's biggest coincidence.
It would be a very PS2 style trick to pull from your memory card. Like, imagine a game where all the levels, all the streets were just named after other games on your bloody memory card.
Crash Bandicoot Drive.
Yeah. Bandicoot Road.
Twisted Metal Lane.
Vice City.
Castlevania Boulevard.
The game that we're talking about today is from publisher Eidos and developer Rocksteady Studios, which is what I've been most excited to get into talking about this. From the year 2006, Urban Chaos: Riot Response. Snake, I'll explain why you're on this episode in a second, but Sam, so the reason that you're here is because both you and I are a fan of the Batman Arkham games.
Oh, yes.
Which were made by Rocksteady Studios. And I feel like a lot of people didn't know that before because I feel like a lot of people, like Arkham Asylum came out and they were like, wow, this first game from a studio no one's ever heard of. What a great first game to start with. No, it turns out they got their start with this very little known PS2 like FPS game that came out like not quite at the end of the PS2 life cycle, but at this point the 360 was out.
Yes, yeah.
Like it had come out right at the end of 2005. And I feel like a lot of people were now starting to transition over slowly to the next generation, because right at the end of the year, the PS3 and the Wii's out, right?
God, yeah, it must be. So 360's definitely out, Wii's out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the PS3 was like just barely out 2006. That feels about right.
This game really is kind of using all the PS2 juice, though, because it looks great and it plays really, really well.
I think, like this and Black, I think are like really pushing above their weight in regards to they look like 360 games, but with like poor anti-aliasing versus like you look at a lot of early 360 games and they just look like PS2 games with a lot of smearing. Like it took until right towards the end of that generation that like
it's that kind of changeover period where the old stuff still looks better than the new stuff because they haven't figured out how the new stuff actually works yet.
Funnily enough, I would say that the 360 game in my mind where I think of like, graphics have gotten like really solid looking is, funnily enough, Arkham Asylum, which is like, again,
what they did next.
The game that they made before that was this, which, like, it is really surprising.
I'd agree, the lighting in this was really impressive, particularly the fire and the way that light interacts for a fucking PS2 game. I noticed when my guns started getting upgraded and had scopes on them, the scopes actually show the environment and characters around. It's not just like it's a
very impressive Wii scope.
Yeah. I mean, I guess as we're quickly talking about like kind of cool visual effects in this game, one of the little upgrades that you get, well, it's not quite an upgrade, it's like it's like something they give you for certain levels where you go into apartments that are on fire.
Oh, the rebreather, which is also...
Yeah, the rebreather that they give you has a infrared element in it, which seems like maybe a bad idea if you're going into a building which is full of like bright fire.
It's fine, it's perfectly calibrated so that everything that isn't fire is actually just cold.
Yeah, they've lowered the levels, so it's just like, we're working on this kind of like baseline of... It's got to be really, really hot to show up, but it has like a really nice detail of... if you have your shield out and it gets shot, the shells that collide with the shield like leave kind of like these little heat marks, and it's like that's like a really nice bit of attention to detail. I mean, it's funny because what's it called? Metroid Prime did something similar with its like heat visor. Like if you use like the ice blaster, it was like super cold, so it looked black on a visor, versus if you had like the plasma, it was like bright white coming out of her arm. But you very rarely saw those details in like other people's FPS, like, especially games that this was riffing on, like Splinter Cell or kind of like Rainbow Six. Like, very rarely saw those touches, like, and especially in some of this budget, which is impressive,
And it's funny as well, because a lot of tactics games of that era, they had very little visual flash because they were just leaning in on like, hey, here's raw difficulty, it moves, it looks a bit of a clunker, but it's not really until Vegas, I think, tactics games kind of started shifting away to being a bit more Hollywoodized, aesthetic focused.
Is this tactics though? Because yes, you get people that you can
this
order
isn't
around,
tactics.
and then get like this run and gun, you're on a timer, go kind of level.
Oh no, that's why I described this as like SWAT 4 on crank. It's like SWAT 4, it rewards you for non-lethal takedowns. This just does that, but in the dumbest way possible. And like, congratulations, you non-lethally took out 10 men. Upgrade attained. Shotgun. It's like
you took them out non-lethally. Here's a really lethal way to take them out.
It also does a siphon filter thing where you can leave it on too long and burn them.
Yeah, and they start smoking because you've electrocuted them too long, and sometimes they set on fire.
Oh yeah. I mean, this game also has, we learned it when I did a stream of it, the greatest mechanic I've seen in a while. So one of the ways you can see the lineage from this to Batman, because you can see a lot of like features that they just took into Batman and they slotted in perfectly, which was sometimes you take out like the last enemy in an area or an important enemy, and it does a slow-mo ragdoll them going
It's Max
down.
Payne.
Yeah. It's super awesome. Like, they just crumple over and it does a big zoom in. If you rotate the right analog stick 720 degrees, your character will, like, flip his gun, and the next kill you get, no matter what, will give you that effect. And you can just do that infinitely. It's amazing.
And you know what's funny?
And it works.
And
on
what's
every-
funny is that you can do that with every gun, even the ones that he can't flick. Because there was a bit where Snake was streaming it where it was a helicopter turret, and every single shot was one of those slow. And because it's a turret, and you're shooting at like 1,000 rounds a minute, and there's like hundreds of guys running out. Like, this entire section just went on for half an hour of just these guys.
I mean, James,
just
the thing you're forgetting is because I had to stop firing to load in the slow-mo again, it was like Nick Mason sat in this helicopter pinging off one perfect headshot with a minigun like he's showing off, and then just, right, rev up the next one. And then because it's a super high-powered gun, the ragdolls just go flying, and man, I love ragdolls.
So I learned the hard way. The game is still running during those because one of the save the VIP missions, it goes to one of those slow-mos. Bear in mind, the player has no control, and I'm getting shot during it and lost about half my health bar.
It's that is like a really big downside of it, is sometimes it will just rob you of control. It's like, please, I don't need to show off right now. You can immediately exit them, but that's still a problem because the player doesn't know they're getting shot.
I didn't know I could exit them.
You could just mash X and like it will just end immediately. Control returned. I learned that because, well, I'd seen so many of them because I'd done the controller trick to just do them whenever I wanted.
I think because I was in like speedrunning mindset, whenever I had a slow motion, like I was just tapping X to just blast on to the next thing. So
I got half the medals, and I'm quite content with that. I got to the point where, like, one of the funniest unlocks you get massively extends the range on your taser to like 5 feet or maybe a few meters. So that makes getting the rest of the non-lethal medals like obscenely easy because you just point it in the direction of an enemy and you don't even have to really aim anymore. It's just I'm just a Sith Lord now. Everyone goes down.
I can just cast lightning from my fingertips like I'm Better Call Saul.
The medals and the unlocks were very weird in that they kind of reminded me of everything visually seems to remind me of Burnout 3 in that game, but
it is super like PS2 kind of in your face scoring system, which is really funny.
Well, I was going to say very late PS. Like, I felt like, I mean, we should try and explain what the game is.
Yeah, let's circle back
point
around to the intro of the game and then put it.
Let's go back to I've always been quite interested in playing this game, and like I think when we were doing Bullet Time as a concept, this was always in the back of my mind, anyways. Of like, oh, this really odd little FPS game that no one talks about, despite the fact of like this developer's lineage is like super, like they're a pretty big name, like in AAA space, to the extent that they did have a new game come out this year, which didn't do super well, but people are like, I think the fact that there has been such a reaction around it is just down to the strength of their previous entries that they had done and just like their sort of the high bar that they had set, not just for themselves, but like the rest of the industry. But I always think it's weird in regards to just like, because the first game, well, the first Batman game they had made under Eidos, which was always one of those publishers that is at this kind of very much dance between AAA and AA spaces, and I would say that this very much fits within that, but I guess I'll get into that thesis a little bit later. But Snake, you're here because, as you've already said, this was a game that you played as a kid.
Yeah, this was in the weird collection, but I mean, you see the box art, a kid is going to think that box art is really cool. And you don't see many like shooters that are just urban warfare like that, cops versus criminals.
That is the weird thing, because like a lot of police tactics games you're only really getting in the likes of Rainbow Six. Like,
you are playing as like a specialized operative, and you're not fighting criminals, you're fighting terrorists, which distinction either or, but it tends to be like super surgical military operations, super punishing. This isn't that. This is like absurdist. Like
This is splashy.
Yeah.
No, like the nearest thing that this would be like is like something like a Judge Dredd or even like a RoboCop game. Which
it's funny actually, Sam, that you mentioned the scoring system looks like Burnout, because one thing that I remember from the Black episode, it was said about that, is they were trying to make the Burnout of shooters with Black. This
Yes.
feels more like the Burnout of shooters. Not just because your enemies are the burners, but it's like, that in-your-face scoring system, you score a headshot and it's like 5 out of 10 headshots. It's like, oh man.
Well, not even just the
This
medal
is-
system, but more the way that in Burnout 3 you get like, here's a preview of this really nice car, and if you do this time trial, you get to keep the car.
Yeah.
They do the exact same thing here, only it's like, here's a machine gun upgrade, and if you
Oh,
beat
yeah.
this time
Yeah.
trial, you get to keep the machine gun for your other missions.
Yeah, that is a big part of it, because all the extra missions you unlock are, you want to upgrade your kit, earn it. Like, it's super funny as well, because like the shotgun one was like, I just did that with the handgun, because that map is just, that's jumping ahead, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess, so just to sort of like wrap this point, it's just like, so this is a game that you had played as a kid. I mean, it's funny though, because like I think when I talked to you, because I think we initially talked about doing this early on, and then the idea was we were going to do like sort of a pair of episodes where I'd make a choice and you did. And so like this, we're kind of pairing up with the Punisher in regards to like this sort of era of PS2 games. And I was like, no, this is like the right time to talk about Urban Chaos, like in light of, say, Rocksteady putting out a game this year which is ostensibly a shooter, which a lot of people would like to forget, versus this game which is a shooter and everybody seems to have forgotten in a weird way. And it's weird because like I did do a ton of research just to make sure that like anything that we're going to talk about today is like we're not repeating too much, because I think like the point of Bullet Time is like, as well as going part and parcel of trying to avoid Modern Warfare and trying to avoid like Halo, but those are always going to be like a massive sort of specter over anything that we talk about just because of this era. It was also trying to avoid like, the R Games Reddit hidden gems, which everybody seems to know about, because say...
Yeah, like you'd get, as a very personal example, I get a lot of requests for Stalker. I used to, and it's like,
Yes.
it's like, I get that, but that's not niche in the way that we're trying to talk niche. We're trying to talk stuff that you've come to us and suggested it, and because anyone else has said the name, that pushes it down the ranks a bit, because counterintuitively, we now know it has a bit more profile.
Stalker's also one of those games where I feel like it's not quite within the remit of the, like, as I always have tried to like figure out the identity of the podcast, and obviously we'll go away and do other stuff. It is very much about PS2 to 360 era, the glut of like kind of how the Wii had like a lot of like kind of shovelware in the style of a particular genre. This is trying to analyze why were there so many FPS games like during these eras, and like what was kind of the knock-on effect of that. This isn't like a Stalker where, really famous game, but it doesn't quite fit into the genetic makeup of like what we really talk about here. The Metro games, on the other hand, they probably would, because they were trying to like fit. It was basically like, hey, how do we take Stalker and turn that into a Call of Duty game? And that's like and that fits in with like THQ and a lot of like the big US sort of AA publishers that come up a lot as well on this podcast. Funnily enough, Eidos hasn't yet. I believe this is the first game of theirs that we are talking about, and there is kind of interesting stuff around that. But I would just say then, just to bring this kind of introductory bit to a close of what were all our sort of thoughts about like this game, like Snake, you coming back to it, and Sam, I assume you played this for the first time for the pod, yeah?
Yeah, I was completely unaware of it prior to you being like, hey, do you want to look at the one game Rocksteady made before Batman Arkham? I'm like, they made a game?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, even funnier than that, and I will go into this when we talk about sort of the weird history behind this game. They made a few games before this, but it wasn't under the name Rocksteady.
Oh.
But
Didn't know any of that.
We got some fun to dig into, but like Time Splitters, this is one of those games that like I am genuinely glad I got to play for the podcast, because this is something special, and I mean it's still swimming in sevens, and we will dig into what that kind of means, but I am basically, this fits within the same realm as like Blood in the Sand for me. Of this is a genre of FPS that I didn't really know people were doing, and I kind of wish would come back, which is I can't even call it the arcade FPS because that's not quite
The score shooter.
the shooting gallery FPS, the target practice FPS, because this Blood on the Sand and the Punisher like are in that zone of you do play it like a Call of Duty style corridor shooter, but there seems to be kind of like an almost point blank style. Hey, go for a headshot and we'll give you 200 points. Hey, get 15 headshots and we'll give you a new gun. Like very almost achievement focused in a weird way.
And I kind of found it more like and this might sound a bit trite, but like a bite-sized, more focused GoldenEye, because that game has a varying pace. Well, there are rooms you need to take slow and steady, and there are other rooms where it's like, no, get in there with a shotgun, just keep fucking moving. And this sort of does that same balance.
GoldenEye I think has like a really big effect on like sort of the genetic makeup of this game, which I feel like there's an entire lineage of Brit FPS games that were built on the bones of GoldenEye. But I would also say, Sam, this game is like a really weird kind of prototype of what eventually Arkham Asylum is, which is, okay, this room is the combat room. This room is the platforming, like, Prince of Persia room. This room is the stealth action room. And like how and even like sometimes you may go back to the same room and what was once the combat room then turns into the Hitman stealth action room. This game has that in regards to like, it's an FPS, but you're doing, some parts of the level are going to be structured like this, where it's, hey, don't catch anybody's attention, or hey, in this part of the level you're going to have a fireman and you have to save people. And just basically it's almost like making a ramen dish, but they're just putting different ingredients in it every time. It's like the same base, but for a few small additions and changes, they're getting like completely different stuff out of it each time, which I think is like really impressively done for a game of this size.
As early as level 1, they do that whole, you've got the jet of fire, and you have to use the shield to get through the flames unharmed. And they, like, point for point, bring that back for Robin's gameplay in the Batman Arkham City DLC, the Harley Quinn one. You do the exact same thing with a shield to get through a burning jet stream.
God, I didn't even realize, that they would have even brought that shield gameplay back. Like, the fact that this game has a shield in it, I think is super interesting, because, like, off the top of my head, the only other FPS... one of them's a light gun game, and it's Crisis Zone, is that you always have a constant shield with you, and it acts as basically mobile cover. But then the only other games I can think of that do that, and I kind of mentioned this to you off mic, Snake, but it's like, it's very sword and board. Like,
oh yeah, I love that kind of thing. Funny one example I can think of, and it's like a little piece of Counter-Strike history, and I think it is back in the game now. Counter-Strike had a riot shield, but it's not in comp play because it's, very weird to balance. And that's, leave the debate on balance in Counter-Strike because that's none of our fields. But I find that interesting that, there were points in Counter-Strike where it had ultimate power weapons, which just never really fit the meta. Like, that's not the kind of game it is. Shields are they're an interesting balancing difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, because the only other time I can think of it is Modern Warfare 2 had it, where they introduce it in, I want to say it's either the level before or it is No Russian, where they give you a riot shield. And that changes just the balance of the gameplay of, like, basically they just change it up of just like, hey, you're not going to be able to hide behind, like, walls and pillars here. We're going to give you mobile cover. Let's see what you can do with that. And then when they throw that into multiplayer, it's like such like a revelation of, oh, I can just run out into the open and use a shield. Like, this is really interesting. Like, this is such like a different flavor of combat here.
And
so my relationship with the shield was weird, and I was playing it while I was away last week in like shorter sessions.
Yeah.
And I remembered you could aim down the sights, which was weird for that era game. And my kind of reflex wanted to go L1 aim down sights, R1 fire.
Oh,
but it's
yeah,
not. It's
no.
R3 to aim. L1 is the shield. So I'd go through like half a level looking for cover, playing it like a normal FPS. And I'd go, oh shit, yeah, I have this shield that I should have been using the entire time.
I think James sent me a similar thing, whereas I adapted. I think it's because I played it as a kid and I knew what I was coming back to. I just kind of knew this game as the shield game, especially because I was playing for medals. Like, right, I need to be exploiting this shield for all it's worth because it is so ridiculously overpowered. And it's odd because shields generally, they try and balance them, whereas this game is like, no, this shield is your best friend.
This shield is like, you can't even describe it as the shield in Halo. Like, this thing is like solid titanium. Like,
there is a boss fight where a guy's firing rockets at you. The rocket won't go through the shield.
Yeah, it just eats the rocket, and it's like, what the fuck?
What is this thing made of?
Although it made me very, very scared later on when the burners start getting their own makeshift shields.
I was gonna
I'm
bring
like,
that. I was waiting on that, but yeah, no, like, oh god, this is gonna be a massively out of order episode, I guess. But one thing I love is that. So the game begins and the enemies just have Molotovs and they just have like cleavers. And some have shotguns. They're very rare, but it's very interesting how that you and the burners kind of have an arms race throughout the game where they're just copying your shit. Like,
again, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, it's like, it begins with, oh, you don't have too many weapons. So you have a handgun, they have the sawn-off shotgun, then they get Uzis, then they get a buzzsaw, which is their version of the taser, and then they get ARs, and then finally they just ape your shield, and they are the most terrifying enemies in the game. They are horrific. And then I was doing that, and my thought was, oh god, was I this annoying? I felt bad for them, suddenly realizing what a shield meant.
It's like in Batman Arkham Origins, where you fight some martial artists and they have the same counter move that Batman does, and it's like, okay, that's what that feels like.
This is how it feels.
I mean, to go back to what you say about, like, when we talked about Black and they sold that as the quote burnout of shooters, and the kind of the analysis that we came to of what that meant was the spectacle of it, as in the way that you blow through concrete and like just the sound of guns and stuff. That was reflected in how, like in Burnout 3, how a car smashes against something and the way it deforms and, gas ball explosions. That's what they were getting out of it. This is way more on the mode of, say, if you turned Daytona USA into an FPS game of the levels are short, like they're only a couple of minutes apiece. There's even kind of like a lap system to them of checkpoint, kind of like you will always go back to certain points of that, and the checkpoints even kind of reflect of, okay, here's this style of action. Now we're going to change it to this. Now we're going to change it to this. Upgrade system exactly like Burnout. And even just like in regards to using the shield and stuff, they always want you pushing forward. There's no point in the game where you're meant to, like, apart from where they lock you into like these little hostage situation bits, which are like my favorite part of the game. You are always meant to be kind of like pushing forward through these guys. But, and the whole thing I was going to say was, the fact that these guys are upgrading alongside you, it's like in a racing game where, I've just unlocked a Bugatti. But now I'm in a race where everyone has a Bugatti. So it's like, first you're going to basically let me off the hook of, I get to drive faster than everybody else. But now everyone's at exactly the same level that I am. So now it's just a matter of, okay, I'm going to hit the corners faster. I'm going to do this tighter than you do. Which is like, just as a mindset in an FPS game is just so interesting. And like, nothing really of its time. Nothing really since has tapped into that, which is weird.
And it does it without tapping into the, to quote Syndrome at the end of Incredibles, when everyone's super, no one will be.
Yeah.
It's because you're still staying a step ahead of the burners. Yes, they're getting more and more advanced and more deadly, but so are you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because especially if you do the medals where, like, this is one of those weird things, like very early attachment things. So, I've gone over the loop of it, but yeah, you unlock medals and that upgrade your guns. And every mission also has, like, a burner leader where you get an optional challenge that, like, hey, if you bring them in alive, you unlock an extra mission, which just gets you which either gets you a new gun or a big, like, upgrade. And your pistol starts as, like, kind of just standard video game pistol, but by the end it's got a scope and it's fully automatic and it has 30 rounds to a magazine. It's like, oh, I don't even need the machine gun anymore because I've just got like a laser pistol that hoses bullets in a straight line.
Yeah.
Did you guys do what I did, which is so many times come around a corner, oh shit, there's a guy there with a sawn off, bang, and it comes up, sub-objective failed, arrests the gang leader. It's like, right, pause, restart checkpoint, let's stun gun him this time.
I didn't go that far, but I would replay levels, like, because I tried to do multiple medals at once, but sometimes it's like, oh, I've died, fuck it. Now I don't have to care about it as I just get the headshot medal or the stun medal or what have you.
I would do a level once, like, even if I wasn't very good at it, I would just blast all my way through, and then I would replay it to go over the little achievements. Again, weirdly forward-thinking in this game, but it is very much in the mold of something like a Burnout where, hey, come in a race first place, or take out 5 guys while you're racing, or do this move while you're racing. Like, very Project Gotham-y as well, where they gave you, like, little points for doing, these cool little moves during a race. But, like, the whole thing is to encourage replayability. Like, the fact that there are 2 achievements in every level, which are the complete opposite of each other, which is either get X amount of headshots or X amount of arrests.
And those
you can only
numbers
get headshots or arrests.
Those numbers do get so high that I think on certain levels it's like, oh, I genuinely can't do both of these, even if I did the numbers perfect. I'm not sure, though, but it could have just been me. I really like how the story in this game is presented, because it's very dumb. Well, it kind of starts with the main menu, which I think this game, it's tongue-in-cheek in this very British doing Americans kind of way, where you turn the game
very
on.
Very GTA, yeah.
Yeah, like, and you've got a big American flag, and you've got, like, what can only be described as cop rock. It's a...
yeah, it is music that you would play over footage of, like, our troops have come home, and now they've started a coffee brand, kind of like,
The song is called Modern Romance by the Metro Riots, which
Yes.
is an appropriate name for a band to do a song for this game, I suppose.
I believe they've changed their name, but I can't remember what to, but at the time they were known as the Metro Riots, and the music is very... But while you're saluting as the flag is constantly waving in the background. On this... that was the thing I was going to say when we were talking about it looking like Burnout 3. This is this really interesting sort of aesthetic that, like, late PS... Talking about PS2 aesthetics, well, that's the cool thing at the moment. But this is, like, a very specific one that a lot of late PS2 games had, which is, like, trying to look like DVD menus. Because this has it, 24 has it, Killzone has it, and Burnout has it, where it's, like, you have these long kind of, like, they have the big black bars trying to replicate the look of, like, widescreen, shrunk to panorama. And then, like, having your options where it's laid out almost like, you'd use a D-pad or, like, your TV remote to go through them. And, like, even the way they're laid out is, like, new game, like, watch film or options. And, like, this game has extras in it. Like, you'd have extras on the DVD menu. But the extras here are the credits, the cheats, like, a couple of other different things. So it is like they're trying to make it look like it's a little TV show, which is interesting.
And it's interesting as well because the framing device for how the story is told is, so, you're Nicholas, you're just Nick Angel Mason, and you're just, I guess you're a guy coming back from overseas to join the Zero Tolerance police force.
So
the Zero Tolerance unit. They call themselves T0.
Yeah, they call themselves T0, and everything is told through a Greek chorus, much like RoboCop of Channel 7 News, which in between levels you get these little interstitials where it is a live action actress who, when we were doing the when you were streaming it, we were trying to figure out who this actress was. Couldn't quite get a full bead on her. Her name in the credits lined up with a VO who's been in a ton of stuff, but we weren't sure if that's actually who it was. But no, they very much do try and ground it in, like, some kind of real world, but, like, heightened to the extent of she never actually says which city this takes place in, other than bringing you the news from your city. So the idea being, like, this could happen in anywhere's USA, basically.
Give it that applicability to any US player. It's just don't set it anywhere specific. It's just any town, USA.
Got a rural farmer in New Zealand going, well, my city.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just like looking around being like, where's all this? I can't see any city blocks. I live in the middle of corn country. What the fuck?
What are they going to burn? The corn?
Oh no, the burners. Oh, the burners. They got the corn again.
Ah, popcorn for everybody.
Hey.
There's a hostage situation where you have to save his cow.
Ooh, there we go. And you can tip the cow with a riot shield.
They don't specify a city, but like all of the voice acting, which is just chef's kiss kind of video game voice acting. Everyone's got a New York accent.
Except, all of the gang members sound like the gang members from Batman. Like in a Batman Arkham game of it's the Bat.
The voice of Cortez was in this game, right? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, not Michael Clark Duncan because that's an actor, but he has got that same kind of triple barrel name. I can try and figure this out
because
for
you can tell it's a lot of like English actors who are just doing super played up American, like not the worst job in the world, but it's like they're having fun with it. It's kind of little piss takey. God, why can't
I got my guy Spin back there. You gotta help
Clark
him.
Hill.
Tom Clark Hill, yeah, he's in this doing like generic American gangsters, but you can still, if you know what to listen for, you can hear Tom Clark Hill in some of those voices.
Basically, the only Yank that they hired for this game is the actress that does all the newscasting, which in fairness, she says the most stuff out of anybody. So
yeah.
Makes
If
sense.
there's anyone you're not going to risk letting a British accent slip through, it's your main framing device.
But the plot of this game and why it's part of Snake's controversial police brutality miniseries is that gangs have overrun your city. How have the gangs overrun the city? Gangs. I don't know. Gangs just do that.
We just stopped looking for a minute and then we turned back around. I was like, fuck, everything's
fuck,
on
there's gangs
fire.
everywhere. What the fuck? And then rather than being like, oh, why don't we try and figure out what the root cause of crime is? No, let's put money into the police force so they can establish the zero tolerance unit, ergo the T0 unit, where they get to use military tactics and top of the line weapons to do. Oh, and they also have higher than like police authority to deal with. They're basically given 007's license to kill to deal with the threat.
And just to kind of bring the parody home, just the kind of piss takiness home, like what's the name of the newscaster lady?
Lanny York.
Yeah, Lanny York. She like is totally like calm, and the intro is this super upbeat like news jingle, and then it's like a school has been firebombed today and T0 have turned up, and it's like fucking hell.
Top news today, 300 people dead. And it is like she's delivering it the same way that like whenever they used to do like American broadcast on Brass Eye, just that completely like heightened sort of, and now for a lighter story kind of voice, but it's for like literally everything in this game, including when hundreds of people are fucking dying.
There are a couple of moments where she sort of like stalls for a second. There's this look on her face of, did I just flub that line? I think I flubbed that line. And then they just carry on.
A couple.
Yeah,
she flubs a few, but just shrugs on. It's like they did not give her a second take.
No, that was one take and done.
Yeah.
She did these all in her like basement against a green screen versus all of like the shots of like the mayor today. We went to the mayor's office and it's literally like 3 people talking to a guy, and it's like very obviously they shot it outside Eidos' offices in like fucking Milton Keynes, where they've like separated it as much as possible so you don't see like, oh, there's the concrete cows. Oh no, this looks like any American city. Don't worry about it.
And like, there's a cast of characters who are mostly just like mugshots. Like Nick, there's a picture of Nick Mason who is just the funniest looking police officer alive, but they try and this guy's an office worker who they've put in shades and like a cop top, and it's like, right, now stand and look serious.
Who's his commander? Like something Wolf?
Adam Wolf.
Adam Wolf, who literally looks like they put handsome man into Shutterstock and they were like, there we go. Handsome police officer.
I felt like they just grabbed someone's uncle from, like, you know, early 2000s uncle who buys his kids flame shirts.
Oh, yeah. There we go. No, that is
Yeah.
definitely a bad dad. Yeah, that's who they got for
Yeah.
Adam Wolf, who very much fits his character. But it's the most threadbare bit of plot to just kind of kick things off, which is just, you're in a city. It is very kind of like Death Wish 3 of just, the city's just overrun with gangs, and the only way to stop them is to shoot every single one of them. So,
They
get
can't
busy,
do crime
basically.
if they're dead.
Yeah, but there is like the tiniest thing in the game of just like, but the public aren't a fan of T-Zero, and it's like, why? Because of their actions? No, because they cost a lot of money.
Lasts about 3 missions. And then they're like,
Oh, yeah.
T-Zero are heroes and the public loves them.
No, it's just like the interesting thing that they do with the plot.
I mean, it's the funniest thing you had to go without saying. Like, you just turn up. There's really hilarious bits where if you stun a few people, there are kind of situational lines like, oh, thanks, Nick. That's going to take a bit of the heat off us. But then it's like, I also got a medal for headshotting 10 people on the way here. Like, Nick, you surely should have been trained to shoot center mass, but you are just showing off with the headshots. This is not good.
See, I wondered
But
if
it's
there'd
really
be like
funny.
a hidden karma system or something behind that, whether you stunned or shot, but no, it plays out the same regardless.
Yeah,
No,
it's really
it's
just
arcade.
it's really just do both, replay the mission to get your weapon unlocks.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing though is that in this interesting way, this is going to sound like a really daft comparison, but it kind of reminds me of the old, like really old pre-fucking 4 Call of Duty games where, they used stock footage. And obviously that's a lot more because that's based on a real conflict. That's to contextualize, like, and here's what happened in this theater of war. This is a dumb version of that.
Call of Duty 1 literally
comedic
has
version.
it where this was meant to be their unique selling factor when because they made the team that made Allied Assault got bought by Activision to basically make Call of Duty. And Allied Assault and the original Medal of Honor were already celebrated being like collaborated by Spielberg and having this level of authenticity to it. And then Activision going, we need to go a step further than that. All of the interstitials are going to be done in the style of Ken Burns, like Let Us Home from the Front Line, where you literally are these, like, the mission briefings are written in the style of a soldier going, my dearest Gertrude, I do not know if I will return because in this level I have to get 10 headshots before kind of. But they do it in the style of like, this is serious. Before you get to like Modern Warfare 4, where it's like 7,000, where it basically looks like Command and Conquer of 7,000 CG assets flipping around and going, blow up all the terrorist's head. Otherwise, you're not a real American. Okay, I will. And this game is more kind of on, like, sort of splits the difference between those two things. Again, very RoboCop just in regards of most of the story is told through newscasting stuff.
Yeah, because it's like the story doesn't really affect Nick. Like, Nick has no character. He's a silent protagonist. He is a JPEG that you see in these scenes. Because, like, essentially all of the higher level solving of the actual problem, which isn't even really, like, solved by you or the police or any official, is just... It's just totally out of your grasp. You're just the boots on the ground. Meanwhile, the news is reporting, oh yeah, the guy who's behind all of it, he put out a press release saying I did it.
Oh yeah.
The most agency or involvement in the story that Nick gets, other than being the guy who shoots everybody and gets shit done, is he gets Tomb Raider 2'd at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get an epilogue mission where you've defeated the burners, but then in the epilogue mission you defeat them for real this time.
Doubly, I guess. They try and get revenge on you and you go, no, you've taken the fight to me. Even though this isn't technically me because this is the safe house they put me in because you already burnt my last
Yeah, like
Oh
you
god,
just
yeah,
took,
that gets firebombed like halfway through, doesn't it?
He
Like,
gets
he wasn't
firebombed,
home,
like-
he was on patrol. It's like, good go, birders. He wasn't even home. Twats.
It's a good thing he's out just killing people all the time, or you would have had him.
Before we get to the twist, I do want to quickly... why don't we use the first level as just kind of an explanation of, like, what do you do in this FPS game, which is different to most FPS games, which is that... Yeah, very much the arcade premise of it is, like, every little section, every little checkpoint is, like, you would almost imagine that this would be, like, you'd be on a rail and it's Virtua Cop, where they push you between the different set pieces. But because it's an FPS game, you can move around and you can collect, like... there's, like, little masks that you can collect and stuff like that. I mean, in regards of talking, like, the actual gunplay itself, feels okay. I think it is very serviceable for of the Zero, I think.
Yeah, it works very well. It's got it's got just the right amount of kind of like controller correction, I feel, where I still feel like, oh, I earned that headshot, rather than the controller just, did all the work. But, it's the pace of it, the enemy AI. It feels like you can consistently pull off headshots if you're playing kind of careful and like kind of keeping things moving.
Shotties feel pretty good. Assault rifles feel pretty good. It's like, and again, it's kind of the Batman thing of just every time you unlock a new weapon, it does like maybe it may not feel different in regards to the controls, but it does have like a nice bit of feel of, hey, this is something new that I'm playing with, which is cool.
It took me a moment.
I really do like how chunky the guns are in this game.
I will say as well, weird bit of this game sort of predicting future stuff. Every single weapon, its controls are constantly on the hood, as in explaining what they do, and I think that's just partly down to they give you a lot of stuff to play with. Like, even before you start picking stuff up, you have a taser, which is on its own button. You have a gun, which is on its own button. You have your shield, which is on its own button, and it's just like, oh, this is like a bunch of stuff to kind of consider. But no, they just always have on-screen prompts, and it very much reminded me of like all the modern Nintendo Switch games like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, where it's like, oh, hey, you're now in frog mode. Here's all the controls for frog mode, so you never have to ask, what do I do?
A neat thing as well with the controls is, so, like square is assault rifle, circle is your taser, triangle is your grenades. And you can like tap the button to like shift between like, okay, you can tap and be like, okay, if I tap square, it will go between my assault rifle to my handgun to my shotgun to my thing. You can tap like circle to do your melees and triangle to do your grenades. But what's really cool is if you have your assault rifle equipped and you hold down circle, he'll just like brandish his taser and immediately use it as like a quick option. And you can also use that to just instant throw grenades. And it's like, this control system, I got taught that on stream by a commenter. It's like, this control system has some depth and like, oh, I need that right now. It's really cool. Like, that is like, there's a lot of forward thinking in like, oh, how do we get a bit more juice out of this control system, out of this weapon swap system?
It's like squeezing as much as it can out of like a PS2 controller, because the D-pad is used at all times for basically maybe the one element of this game that I don't think particularly works all that well. Not that I would ding the game for it, but it was just one of those things in hindsight that I was a bit like, is because it does have this slight tactical element, there are they do pair you up a lot with different characters, and like in this first level is where you meet Michael the fireman, right? Or is it?
Forrester?
Oh no, it's Dick the fireman. Oh no, it's Johnson.
Forrester. There's a cast of like your Call of Duty buddies who are there with you.
You wanted to call your character like Richard Dickens or something, and the joke was because the fireman was called Johnson, right?
No, I wanted to call him Dick Shaft or Richard Shaft because it's 2 words for cock.
That was right. You wanted to call him Dick Shaft, but the fireman that is your pal throughout the entire game is called Johnson. Don't know why I've said Johnson so many times in the past like 30 seconds, but whatever.
Yeah, you sponsored by Johnson & Johnson?
Sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. Welcome to the podcast. You do direct like these little extra guys, and you can say like, "Go ahead," "No, stay back," "No, if you're a fireman, put the fire out," or if you're an electrician, fix the electricity box.
I will say this mode is, because it's just an escort. The moment I had anyone, I just told them, "Yeah, just stay here," and literally only called them up when it's like, "Oh, I need you to open a door for me," because it's like. It's the most plain escort thing of just, okay, you're an extra health bar to take care of, so I just won't take care of you. Just wait here until I give you a shout.
It's very Ashley in RE4 of just hide in a bin till I need you.
I'd say they're much better, considering it's 2006. I would much rather have had these guys than the bloody Dead Rising followers.
Oh yeah, I've done my many runs of Dead Rising, and yeah, isn't it great, like, in a game filled with escorts like Dead Rising, that it's like, oh, thank God you have a limp. That means you're easy. Thank God you are not moving under your own power.
So, not moving under your own power, I did have, like, a little oh God moment with the controls at first. So it's not quite sim, and it's not quite arcade. It's somewhere in the middle. And at first, my plan was, I'm going to put this on the Steam Deck, I'm going to emulate it while I'm away, and that's how I'm going to play through it. And at first I was like, oh, these stick controls feel a little floaty. I'm just going to check that against the original disc on an actual PS2. And I'm like, no, that just is how it plays. But by about 3-4 minutes in playing level 1, I was in a groove, and I was like, no, this does feel right. It was just unusual at first.
Yeah, it's an odd thing to go back to because it's not as slick as modern like console shooters, but I think the game is paced around its controls very well, where the moment you kind of see enemies move a certain way, you start getting to an idea of how they'll operate, and it's like, okay, I know how you move, I know how I move. And also with the shield, this is a game you could cheese with blue tack if you wanted. Just put a piece of blue tack where your crosshair is, hide behind a shield, line up the blue tack with a head, drop shield, headshot, shield again.
Yeah, basically,
it's you could be that cheeky.
It's cool though, and I mean, like, sort of the beginning level is, and again, like, when you say about, like, enemy behaviors, they are, like, classic fucking Charles Bronson in Death Wish guys, where they just run straight at you with cleavers and hair. Like, they don't flank, they don't, even when they get shields and shotguns, they're never particularly smart, apart from the ones which have been programmed to, like, pop over the sides of buildings and stuff like that, but they're not, like, the smartest guys,
It's super arcade behavior, but like you learn it as early as level 1 because the enemies have double barrel shotguns in this game. They have a big telegraphed reload, and it's like, that's my moment to get in there and, like, either tase you or go for the headshot. The enemies are super telegraphed in this game in a very interesting way, in a very well done way, where it's like, they've set them up to be like, here's very readable behavior on a very kind of over-the-top brand of enemies.
Again,
very limited voice clips.
That too.
Like, the animation side of it is, like, quite nicely done in regards to, it's not anything cutting edge, but just, like, everything's super legible, which is nice. Leading to my favorite parts of these games, where they turn into, like, proper little arcade mini games of somebody has taken a hostage. And you get one of these pretty early. So basically, at the beginning level, you start outside in the snow, and it teaches you kind of your basic controls in sort of like a Halo, you've landed on the beach sort of way of here's everything that you can do. Then you get into the police station, you get a little bit of the shield tech of, hey, you're going to use this for, like, quote, platforming challenges of getting around fire and whatever. Sure, you're not jumping on stuff, but it is very much like how to get around an environment using the tools that you have. The moment you get into the police station, they go, shit, somebody's been taken hostage. Now we go into hostage time. And what hostage time essentially is they'll throw you into, like, these little long corridors where you'll be in one end and the guy and, like, the hostage and the hostage taker are at the other. And it's just basically about waiting for openings. But the way that they do it is quite cool, I thought. Of just, like, because the controls are as sort of floaty as they are, lining up headshots becomes just, like, a bit of a, like, trying to get the thread through the eye of a needle sort of little challenges. And because they are all based on sort of little timing puzzles, it is like, you've literally taken, like, something that is stock in, like, a million films and TV shows and ratified this into gameplay. And it's, like, something that I haven't really seen anyone done in games previously or, like, since. So, like, this is kind of a cool little bit of technology that you've thrown in here.
The only thing that threw me was I swear I nailed the guy in the head. And he just sort of, like, because these are programmed to be, like, 2-3 times that you need to hit him to resolve the situation, he takes it straight between the eyes and just sort of shrugs it off and goes back a bit for stage 2. It's like, oh, come the fuck on.
And they're all, like, free stage affairs, so he takes 3 bullets to the head. He really wants that hostage.
He's got a really hard head. I mean, I would say my favorite one of those is that, like, when they evolve the idea to the point of where it does genuinely feel like the end of a film, where you're on top of an unfinished building, and the guy who's been taken hostage is the head of Tolerance Zero, and he's pulling him through this unfinished building, and then, like, you do it the second time, but then the third time is like, oh, the way has collapsed. Figure out another way to get up there, and it's like, okay, a little bit of a puzzle cue with, like, I can't also I can't trigger off his attention or get too close to him because then that's an instant failure. Like, how am I going to get around this kind of thing?
There is one that cheesed me off. Wasn't a fan. The worst level in the game is the subway. I fucking hate the subway. Like, that one I just gave up on medals because the intro of that stage is run back and forth. We've put 2 people you need to protect on opposite ends of a train, and they are shot the moment you, like, leave them. So I just have to run back and forth. And landing shots, not just headshots, landing shots, period, on enemies from the opposing train is a nightmare. But anyway, I figure, you know what, at least I'll go for the survivor medal. Like, I'm just going to play safe. I'm going to get the medal for just beating this without dying once. I'm walking towards a door in a hallway with nothing else. Door opens, hostage immediately shot because the hostage taker spawns on that door. And if you're walking down it at a normal pace, it will just open and you'll just immediately game over.
That sucks.
That's a mean one.
It's made up for by, I think this is again only about 3-4 levels in, but there's one on top of a roof, and you shoot him, and he falls off the edge of the roof, but there's a helicopter coming up at the same time. He goes in the blades.
And then you get in the helicopter and just blow 1,000,000 burners away.
But even when, like, so this guy gets sliced to bits, blood all over the helicopter, and the pilot just goes, "Hey, I just had this cleaned."
Hey,
That is,
Mason,
like,
what are you doing?
It's exactly the tone of this game. Is like, this Riot is totally frivolous. Just
No, like, every level of this game should end with, like, a Tony Scott helicopter pan out of just everybody laughing and shaking hands as the credits roll. Like, it is... They've tried to recreate every sort of, like, little crap cop movie moment in this game. And again, it's cute. Like, you have regular bits of shooting, you have, like, these little hostage situations, but then you also have the moments where you have to save people from, like, burning buildings and hostages and stuff. And they do really try and get a lot out of, like, how much stuff can we do with, like... We can't do anything, like, too systems-driven, like, with Half-Life's physics or whatever. But, like, how much can we get away with the toolkit that we have? Pretty cool way.
yeah, because whenever you're working, the game does have slightly different feels. Like, sometimes you're working with other cops, and they'll... It in a weird way, if you're going for medals... If you're playing and just trying to survive and you find the game hard, it's like, oh, great, cool, I have a buddy who's, like, putting fire down as well, and that deals with some enemies. If you're going with medals, it's like, don't steal my kills. I need to race you. If you're with a medic, it's like, okay, cool, I can take a few more risks. I have a little bit of extra health. Sometimes, because sometimes she needs to go and heal people, and it's like, okay, this is now a mini defense section.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, whenever you have a fireman, it's like, okay, now it's low visibility. This is how we change things up, because you're in a burning building where it's really hard to see anything.
And it's one of those things that, like, because again, I think we talked about this a little bit in Black, where that couldn't really be the burnout of FPS games, because that still has because they made that game in the style of the old Call of Duties, where levels went on for like 10 to 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And I feel like if they had done that here, where it's an escort mission with like one of the nurses, but it goes on for 30 minutes, it would drive you up the wall, I think.
Yeah, like every part of this game is like, levels can be 20 minutes, but in that 20 minutes, there's 4 distinct sections of like, okay, we're fighting for the courtyard. Okay, we're going through a burning building. Okay, we're on the roof as enemies are jumping from the neighboring roof and I have to fight them off. And then you have a little kind of mazy segment, and then you're done. It's like, okay, cool, that felt like...
You're not done before, so you do the basic section, you get the civilians, and then you blow up the building opposite. It's we've just spent how long saving civilians from a burning building? And we're just like,
fuck the guys in that building. They were in the wrong part of town.
Fuck those civilians.
We've got enough that we look good on the news report, which is just thoroughly gassing T-Zero anyway at this point.
Yo, T-Zero, they're the fucking coolest guys. Have you seen this shit?
It felt so naked gun.
Yeah.
We were talking about fucking, like, lines that just kind of give away the tone of this game, and, you know, like, damn it, Mason, I just had that cleaned. One I like after another hostage scenario, and this is optional dialogue, but it's hilarious, is you shoot some guy into an elevator shaft, and he's not dead, despite having 3 headshots, and he's just screaming like, damn you, Mason, I'm gonna kill your mother, I'm gonna torture her, I'm gonna do this and that, and you can just call the elevator to crush him, and the guy you saved just goes, now that's what I call zero tolerance.
Oh, God.
And it's like, yeah, I just crushed a man to death.
See, if they made a PS5 version of that where they could use extra buttons, they'd add a one button to the touch bar for that, I think.
I mean, if this was on PS5 today, the guy who's the hostage would say, he's behind me, isn't he?
Yeah. They fly now, and then there's enemies with jetpacks on. God, that'd be weird. But Before we talk about the weird sort of plot and twists and turns of this game, I do want to kind of mention something really funny, which is just the fact of like where this game came from, because we are talking about this being like this kind of weird arcadey version of sort of like a SWAT kind of team. And the odd thing is that is exactly where this game kind of came from, because Snake, you were talking about SWAT 4 before we began this episode. Right at the beginning of this episode.
It's funny that you're doing this lead-in, and now I remember I've been told this and was told this multiple times. I'm sorry for my bad memory, but
no, that's okay. No, if anything, it means that. Well, I'm sad that you now remember it, because it means that you can't be amazed by my fun information.
I'll act amazed.
I'm still learning.
No, so Sam, okay, I'm going to teach you some fun stuff, which is this game weirdly begins with not Rocksteady so much, but even older than that, which is, Sam, do you know what Police Quest is?
Oh, that's King's Quest spin-off, isn't it?
That's right. So Sierra Online, they kind of
Point and
reinvent
click.
adventure games with King's Quest. And then they just did a bunch of like, hey, let's do adventure games. And so like Leisure Suit Larry came out of that. There was another Space Quest with Roger Wilco comes out of that. But then they also do Police Quest, which the big kind of differentiator with it was that rather than like Space and Kings, which were based like purely in fantasy, King's Quest actually had like real like, well, it had a former police officer work on them called Jim Wells, which gave them these like this sort of air of authenticity of like, hey, we're going to show you what it's like being a cop in the real world, and you actually have to follow police procedure while you're playing this game. And it becomes one of these like little things of half sort of power fantasy adventure game, while also being, you know, some they were saying that like this was authentic enough that you could use it as a police training tool. Interesting for us, considering we both do instructional design for a living. I don't know how much like looking at a node like
now you two have to play this game and evaluate it from your jobs.
Evaluate its training. Very true.
Next company, all hands score, me and you, PowerPoint presentation.
Well, not even a PowerPoint presentation. We'll just open up DOSBox and play through Police Quest. But relatively popular series at the time, because like adventure games at the time were big. But then a little game comes out called Doom, and Sierra Online goes, "Hey, how can we cash in on this? Well, we have this Police Quest series. Why don't we try and combine these two elements together?" Which is where we get Police Quest SWAT, a spin-off series starring what does SWAT stand for again? Like Special Weapons and Tactics. Yeah, which is becoming like this thing in the United, like SWAT is like becoming a bigger thing in the news basically since the 1970s, and you know, the LA riots and stuff like that. SWAT is just becoming more of a fixture on television. And funnily enough, the first SWAT game is an FMV game. Like they're really trying to make the point of, hey, you may think this is a fantasy game because of all the big guns and stuff, but this is reality. Like, we're going to take you to police training courses and whatever. But by the time you get to the third game, it is just an FPS. And one of the first games that they do as a spin-off within this FPS genre is SWAT Global Strike Team, which was made by Argonaut.
Oh, Star Fox. Okay.
Star Fox,
Croc
Super
Legend of the
Extra,
Gobbos.
Croc, and also, weirdly enough, pioneering the FPS scheme that we're all still using today with Alien Resurrection.
Fascinating.
And so they make this PS2 game called SWAT Global Strike Force, which is like, okay, we want to do like SWAT tactics, but we also want to make this a little bit arcadier. And their touch point for that was Virtua Cop. They wanted to basically combine a SWAT game with Virtua Cop, bring them both together. And it's this thing of just like, you go into banks and like, you can call out to people and say like, SWAT, put your hands up, or like, SWAT, get on the ground. And like, you know, it would have like reactive NPCs and like, you know, anybody who didn't react, like if they were an enemy, you could
So
shoot
kind of
them.
the inverse of Payday.
Basically, yeah, no, they wanted to try and go for this kind of early Payday design with it, of just like, yeah, you play as a police officer, but, you know, they still, because it's Argonaut, they want to make like a kind of an arcade experience like Star Fox, so it's very fast-paced and very kind of, you know, action-heavy. Comes out, does okay sales-wise, but every single review says this is good, but it's not Rainbow Six, which had been blowing up on PS2 and Xbox at this time.
Yeah.
Now, Sam, the producer of this guy at Argonaut who produced it, Sefton Hill.
Oh, I know that name.
Yeah, you do know that name because basically they do SWAT Global Strike Force doesn't sell that well, and in 2004 Argonaut shut their doors. They basically say, yeah, this was our lifeline from Sierra Online. This didn't do super well, so we're wrapping stuff down. While this happened, though, they were working on Global Strike Force 2, thinking that the first game would do well enough that a sequel would be in the bag. Now, Sefton Hill, rather than letting this project go to waste, goes, well, I know a guy at SCI. I'm going to go put a phone call in and basically say, hey, we have an offer which is a mostly finished game and a team that can finish it off. And he goes over to SCI, who probably not a name that anybody here would remember, but they're the giant conglomerate that buys Eidos.
Okay.
And so Sefton goes to them and says, hey, we got this game, we have this team. It's not going to take a lot of money to finish this off. Give us a year and we can do that. And that is how Rocksteady is formed.
Huh.
The guys that they bring over from Argonaut, these fucking experienced guys going all the way back to Star. Some of these guys going back to Star Fox, some of these guys going back to Croc, some of these guys going back to fucking Alien Resurrection, come over to Eidos, form early Rocksteady, and in a year they basically turn this project around. So the original concept was when SCI bought it for Eidos, they said, well, we went to Sierra, we tried to get the SWAT name. It isn't happening. So can we rebrand this? Initially, they call it Roll Call. Doesn't do very well with marketing. They then call it Tolerance Zero. And that was the game that it had for 3 months up until Eidos said, hey, we have this IP called Urban Chaos, a game that came out in 1999, where literally every game we were making at the time was like Tomb Raider. It was third-person action games with like a bunch of other stuff. But this game also had like an open world element to it of like, you could go wherever you want. But they were like, we haven't done anything with the Urban Chaos name, and this is a game about like urban chaos. So why don't we call it Urban Chaos : Riot Response?
Okay.
And that's how that happens. So basically, the company gets bought in 2005 and they form as Rocksteady, and they're given another year to get this out the door as Urban Chaos Riot Response. And I believe the game, well, I guess I'll get to it more, talk about the sales side of it, but like, it does well enough that Eidos is like, hey, what do you, we're looking to getting licenses, what do you guys want to do next? And that's when the wheels start turning on Batman.
Bloody hell.
I do like the idea that I didn't know it had lineage to Croc, but now I'm just appreciative of the idea that someone went from Croc to Killer Croc.
Hey.
Quite possibly, yeah. Yeah.
That could be a weird career trajectory.
It does explain why Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad does say Yamo all the time as well.
Yeah, and people didn't pick up on that design choice. Now they might.
Also weird why GameSpot said that the control system in this game is going to freak you out. You move on the orthogonals with the left stick and then rotate the camera with the right. What the hell is this? And it's like, GameSpot, every game controls like this.
Are you trapped in 2000?
Are you trapped in the year 1998? What the fuck?
This is just copy-pasted from your Alien review.
Yeah.
Croc 1 on PS1 has the same movement controls as Urban Chaos.
What does it mean?
I couldn't find the button for the taser in Croc, though, and that would have helped.
Oh, yeah, no, that's only in the Saturn version, I believe. So
right.
that wasn't
Also,
explained.
the Saturn version
of Croc?
Like,
I think that's the Saturn version of Croc, right?
yes, it's the version I grew up with. And exclusive to the PAL version, they had to put a little slip in the case to say, do not turn on the Saturn with the disc already in the tray closed, because any surface that has a texture on it will not be rendered. So you had headless Croc, and a lot of the enemies and gobbos were just like the eyes floating on nothing.
Wow.
Was that a unique problem to Croc, or was that a thing with the Saturn? Because
I think that must have been the Saturn version, right?
No, but was that a unique
the PAL version of
right.
Croc on the Saturn, as far as I'm aware?
Okay, yeah, no, I was asking if that was a thing with other Saturn games, or if that was just a weird, unique case with that game.
No, to get it to load the textures properly and actually have the models display in full, you had to turn the Saturn on, open the disk tray, let the Saturn sit on its menu, put the disk in, close the tray, and then hit play game from the Saturn's menu. If you did anything else, headless croc.
Amazing.
How weird. Oh, partially. Oh, yeah. So I forgot to mention they did want to call it Zero Tolerance. They couldn't though because there's already a Mega Drive game called that, which is also a weird early FPS game released in 1994, the same year as Doom, or the year after Doom.
I've never played a Genesis first-person shooter. I don't think I've not heard that I'm missing much.
Not great. No, that's my review of them. Does
the segment in Toy Story count?
Yeah, no, the segment in Toy Story is okay because you don't have to shoot anything. You're just walking around in 3D. So.
I do want to bring up one thing though, which is just I do think, part of like there's a lot of features in this game that I feel like they took that into Arkham and just refined it. Like when you die in this game, it's fascinating. Yeah. Like the nearest enemy or ally will run over and you'll get a bespoke death screen if you just let the death screen run for a bit. Like medics will run over and try and revive you. Other cops will try and do the same. Like they have unique animations and voice lines, and burners will insult you and belittle your corpse before you go. Yeah. It's really fascinating stuff. But one thing that I think is like, I can see the line to Batman here was the non-lethal systems are far more fleshed out than the lethal ones.
Yeah. And I wonder whether that's kind of a holdover from when they were originally making this as a SWAT game, where even SWAT under Sierra Online was like, no, we still got Jim Wells in the room. This has to be by the book. Like, there was still maybe the mindset of, well, we're going to give the police big guns, but like they still have to follow proper police procedure. And so they just have this they're doing this weird balancing act of like, you have to be within the law, but we also want you to have fun, which I think is like this interesting sort of balancing out with this game. And again, weirdly goes into Batman, where I made this kind of fucking startling realization when I was writing it out, but the Batman in Arkham Asylum at this, like most Batman adaptations, you have him like working against the police or they don't know he exists or whatever. No, in Arkham Asylum, he is just a cop. Like, he is working with the detectives to bring in the Joker. They are using the bat signal the same way that you would call in a police officer. So it's like, at this point, he is fully integrated into the force, but he has a cool suit of armor, much like Nick. And he also has a bunch of gadgets, much like Nick.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, it's kind of it's a very weird way to put it. It's kind of the D&D problem, or the old D&D problem, where fighters are very linear, mages are very not linear. They're more quadrilateral, where it's like, okay, you unlock all these guns, but the only gun medal is headshots. So a lot of your unlocks are just worse than the base pistol. Meanwhile, every upgrade you get that helps with non-lethality genuinely expand your options. Like stun grenades are cool, the fucking taser gets a longer range. It's like, okay, this is like the only thing it lacks is like getting a beanbag shotgun or something. It's like, they've given you a lot more tools to be lethal, but it all kind of goes the same way. Meanwhile, every time my non-lethal options expand, it's like, okay, I can use this in a new way. I think the only thing that really changes with the lethal option is smoke grenades, where throw down a smoke grenade, turn on the the heat vision, and the enemies can't see through smoke, but you can, which is pretty mean. But you're doing your job, I suppose.
Yeah. I kind of had the opposite experience, and so if I was out on the open streets, it'd be like, right, where's that assault rifle? Okay, let's go. And as soon as you were, say, following people down into the sewers and you're in these really cramped locations, it's like, I want my automatic shotgun and I want it right now.
When I'm talking about like playing for medals, like trying to get the headshot versus thing, but no, when I'd replay, I'd have a ton of fun just like actually using weapons that match the situation properly.
Oh yeah.
When I wasn't caring about score. Because the guns are all fun. I'm not saying they're not fun. I'm just saying, like, in terms of how I've got to approach these extra objectives.
Yeah. No, it's a cool game. And I mean, I think part of that is just also down to the fact of, I think, funnily enough, like, they didn't have the SWAT license anymore. And it's funny because they didn't get to make another SWAT FPS game, but then it goes back to Sierra and they go to Irrational and say, we want to make another FPS game, which is how SWAT 4 happens. So we could have had Global Strike Force 2, or we could have had, that's the sort of divergence point in the timelines. We could have had one, but we ended up with SWAT 4, which has obviously gone on to be this, fucking gem within ImSims that like a lot of people have now come back to. But no longer being associated with the SWAT franchise did kind of give them the allowance to go off and be a little bit more kind of fancy with it, I think. Because you can do stuff in this game that just you wouldn't have been able to get away with within other sort of police titles, I think.
Maybe that was sort of response to, because I've worked on, from the context you've provided, this previous game, and Jim Wells is in the room going, you can't do that. You can't do that. They can do that if they do this first. And then they just sort of flip that, satirize that, and go, right, fuck it. Your military status, do what you like, lads.
Yeah, no, exactly. And they want to make something more Virtual Cop, more Star Fox, because that's where their heart lies,
All right, the fuddy-duddy has left the room. Break out the auto shotgun.
They're just along that same line is like, what's that? We've just saved this hostage? Yeah, she's not traumatized. She's chucking a TV in a bathtub to electrocute the guy and then doing a news report in front of the corpse.
And then over, the medal screen, it's just, lingering on his corpse as a news report goes on as he's just twitching. It's like, damn. He fucking got it.
So, to kind of go back to what the plot of this game is, and to fill in some gaps that we haven't quite mentioned yet, which is the fact that, okay, so where does the satire come into this game? Funnily enough, I had written a point on this document of, quote, talking points. I don't think we should go into trying to discuss what is good or bad satire, but I guess this game kind of wobbles between the two at various points. But Tolerance Zero as an entity is put together and partially funded by different industries within your city. One of them being Shift It, which seems to be like a removals company or something. It's not like it.
I thought they were. Maybe removals makes sense, but I thought they were like a delivery company.
They're like FedEx. Yeah, they're like a kind of
because I've got a note here that just says, "I'd love it if Parcel Force started committing acts of terror."
So here's the weird thing, because it was capitalized IT. When I saw the vans and stuff in the early levels, which is some nice foreshadowing, I was reading it as Shift IT, and I thought they'd be like office supplies or some shit.
Oh, yeah.
Nope. They start pronouncing it as Shift It in the later cutscenes, and that the bomb that gets delivered to your apartment much later is in Shift It packaging, so...
God. And so it turns out that, and the entire way, and again, it's very Robocop just in regards of the mayor, they're always going to the mayor's office and saying, what are you up to? And they're investigating into it and stuff like that. But basically, what the plot of this game is that, this new militarized unit of the police is put together, and it is partially funded by these businesses, which are also kind of using the military unit as, a little police force for themselves. To the extent of, there's this little Verhoeven bit in either the second or third level where she's like, oh, and by the way, they've now, if you work at these companies, they've now started patting people down and they managed to get 300 arrests in a single day of body scanning people going into these companies, as kind of a show of support. But then it turns out that both Tolerance Zero and the gangs in the city are both being funded by Parcel Force to essentially destabilize the United States.
The bit I found hilarious was when they were like, Shift It employees are going to company webinars and shit and getting indoctrinated as sleeper agents. And like you said earlier, we make company training for a living.
That's true, yeah.
Most people skip through that shit. They are not paying enough attention to become sleeper agents.
Enter key, next button.
Just someone just getting lectures on why I should destroy America, just going, right, X, 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 X. Meanwhile, the guy in the next cubicle is getting radicalized. How are you doing, Jim? He's like, I'm going to burn America down. What?
It's like the movementarians in The Simpsons, isn't it? Where everyone's being indoctrinated by the video, but then Homer leans over and he's like, wait, but how did they know they had a bomb? And it's like, what are you talking about? Oh, when I'm bored, I start to make up a movie in my head.
So Switch would be like, welcome to your social responsibility training. Have you ever thought about the infidels that flood our streets?
Welcome to this DEI training, but for some reason DEI is written like
IED.
Yeah, and then they just flip it around and it's
IED.
actually IED training.
They just scrub that out on the whiteboard and write IED.
Yeah.
And then they flip it again to say, and it makes people die.
Yeah, they just keep spinning the letters around like it's fucking Donkey Kong 64.
Right,
yes.
today on our first aid medical course, we are going to take this bottle of spirits and make a Molotov.
How to wear a hockey mask.
They bring out like the body to show you like where all, you know, of how to like help somebody when they're choking, but they just start plugging rounds in them and it's like, you want to aim for the head as much as possible. Otherwise, since Maz, your heart is around by here, so try and aim for that.
And I could just imagine their corporate training being like, okay, new uniform policy, hockey masks.
Yeah, hockey masks with yellow flames on them, meat cleavers, and tasers.
Jim, I stopped by the canteen today. All the cleavers are gone. Have you seen them?
Oh, these budget reports. We're spending this much on electricity a month, this much on unit rental, this much on cleavers. Can we try and get that down a little bit? No, absolutely not.
Remember that team building day where they had us like running through tires and then crawling under barbed wire in the mud? That was fucking weird, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that is one of the scenes that they show during the game. It's just like one of the guys managed to escape one of those training courses, and then they like threw him into holding to try and silence
I
him.
can understand how the obstacle course might help us with parcel delivery, but the live fire exercise just seemed excessive.
So it's one of those weird things of like, I don't like, it's kind of like, I'm not quite sure where the satire could be cut in regards to, oh, big business, because they're not even trying to make the point of like, oh, big businesses will do anything to get ahead kind of thing. It's kind of a bit more scummy than that, because like the beginning of the game is, they're like, oh, these terrorists are getting training from like overseas. And the guy who is the head of Shift It does have, like, he's called like Aram Khan or something. He has got a very specific Middle Eastern name. And so I am just a little bit like, no, this is kind of wading into sort of awkward territory.
No, because it's weird because it's also balanced out by the other villain who has the even more ridiculous name of Lucian Hotspeed, who's also with Shift It. And it's like,
he's the head of the fucking burners, but like they show his picture and he looks like Ian Livingston, the guy who was the head of Eidos. He just looks like an old white bald guy.
This is the one who flees to Mexico.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's Gabe Peeps who drives to the border. Yeah, Gabe Peeps is like this guy that they occasionally throw in who's like, I've got the evidence here, I'm gonna bring everybody down. And I thought this was gonna be a twist because they're building up this plot of like, oh shit, we've actually found connections between T-Zero and the gangs or whatever. And then there's just a news story which is like, in news today, all of that shit cleared up. Don't worry about it. And I thought that they were going to make a joke of like, oh, they've managed to like sweep it under the rug. No, they don't really then do anything with that. It is literally just like, oh, this interesting plot point you think we're having. No, don't worry about it. Which is, hey, helicopter mission, enjoy. It's like,
Yeah, they're like Adam Wolf, the leader of T-Zero, has links to the mayor and military funding, and they're accused of torturing people and this, that, the other. And then, as you say, you just get to one of the news segments and it's like, they've been cleared of everything.
and also,
never
he's been
tortured
kidnapped by
anyone.
Princess Peach. Or like that.
it's like the game starts and you kind of think, oh, this is going to be a satire, but then it just kind of goes completely mad just by the second half. It's like suddenly like all the moral ambiguity is just, I mean, maybe they were leaning on, oh no, it's all just a cover up and like you're good all along. I don't think so. I don't think the game's that clever. I think it's just, let's just not go all the way. Let's just wrap
feels
this
like
up.
the story was written by one guy until a point, and then it was written by somebody else, and like they never picked that up. And it's funny because like the Batman games, like they have kind of dark humor in them, but they never, like maybe Quincy Sharp sort of plays a bit like that in regards to, if you look into it, he's actually like a lot of the stuff that happened in Arkham Asylum is because of him. But that's kind of it. And then like in this, it's the same thing of like the mayor's plugged into a bunch of stuff that you think that he's a bit of a like scummy guy. And again, is he creating this war to sort of drive money into these different departments?
The key distinction I would make is that in the Batman Arkham games, they had Paul Dini, who worked on Batman the Animated Series for those stories. Obviously, Paul Dini wasn't involved in Urban Chaos Riot Response, so there's no link.
You can tell, yeah.
Although, weirdly, I do see the villain as being kind of like a Joker. Not Arkham Joker, but more the like Dark Knight Rises Joker, where he's playing these two sides off against each other because he just wants to watch the world burn.
Yeah. And again, that's the sort of thing where it's not really a satire, because it's not like, we did this for profits. It's more just kind of like, no, I'm a bad guy. Like,
I just did this for shits and giggles kind of insanity.
I'm not like the product of any sort of like societal like ills or whatever. No, I was just born bad. It came out bad the other day, and now I've started again.
I was running a perfectly successful delivery company, and then I just got bored one day, and I decided to ship in some terrorism.
I decided that the United States needed to be remolded in my image, and so that's what I'm gonna do by putting money into Tolerance Zero and money into the games. Mostly, the Batman element of it is just escalation, because literally as levels go on, you get better weapons, they get better weapons, and like what should be police-style skirmishes does like literally turn into hell on earth. Like the final levels that you go, like that fucking block that you go to is it looks like, you know, fucking Chernobyl. Like in regards to how bombed out it is.
Yeah, no. It's like one of those things where obviously it's a game, heightened reality, but it's like, man, if an American city really got in this state and it's not Detroit, then all heads will turn. It's like, no, maybe not. I don't know. America's been wobbly the last few years. I should stop this tangent short.
Why not?
I should walk away from it.
It is a weird... I don't know. I think the reason that I'm kind of struggling with this game is that it gives you... It's so clever and gives you so many breadcrumbs in these other areas that the fact that it does drop stuff up like that does feel like a mistake.
Yeah, no, that's the tricky part of it is you open on an American flag and that song, and then the whole game is this goofy over-the-top violence parody with a super cheerful news reporter, and it's like, okay, I see what you're doing, and it's British dev, so you're having a bit of fun, you're taking the piss. The old cop who was telling you what you couldn't do has left the room, and now you're having a bit of fun. But then at the end, it does genuinely feel like either they copped out or they were just going for maximum insanity all along, and it's like, why did you have all this seemingly cleverish setup near the beginning?
Yeah. Why have like the bite of an apple of intrigue if you're not going to pay it off?
I mean, to bring up Dragon Ball again, it kind of feels like, you know, with that series, Toriyama said, hey, I'm writing this by the seat of my pants. Actually, I'm drawing the fights. I don't know who's going to win yet. At the same time, as you're playing Urban Chaos, it kind of feels a little bit similar. And it's like, yeah, we're writing this as we go. We're chucking ideas in and out. Oh, they're making the levels at the same time that we're making the cutscenes.
Oh, yeah. They just get like, okay, here's our concept for levels, and then they hand it off to a writing team who are like, okay, now we have to make a news report that kind of justifies this scenario or gives it a bit of flavor, a bit of like grounding context.
And it's funny because like I feel like if they had gone full Burnout and literally like Pursuit Force feels like that, where it's like it has like the lightest plot possible, which is just like, they got a nuclear weapon on their car. Go stop them, what that he means. Like, you know, they can fit the plot of every level onto like the back of a matchstick box. And it's like, okay, that's all I need. And I don't really ask much about like, oh, well, you know, police brutality, blah, blah, blah. Because you can tell just from the amount of light plot in it, this is comic book and this is heightened. Whereas this is like it should be more comic book. But then it has to... Again, it's that weird SWAT element. Jim Wells is still... He's not in the room, but somehow his voice is still
They are
there.
scared that Daddy's going to walk back in with a yardstick.
Yeah. He's going to put his coffee cup on the table and lean over and give him a stern word.
The mention of Pursuit Force, there's something Pursuit Force does that I really wish in hindsight Urban Chaos Riot Response had also done. So Urban Chaos, it's the burners. Start to finish, it's the burners. Whereas Pursuit Force, you jump between like multiple gangs and multiple criminal
I
families.
said this to Snake.
That
Yeah, I
is
wish there
genuinely
was
a
other
thing.
gangs. Yeah.
And especially because I played this as a kid and I didn't get far in it as a kid because I found it too hard back then. I was like, oh, the Burners is probably only the first gang. There's going to be more, surely, because you've just got this fire gimmick. So
Yeah.
more gangs. But no, it's
No.
just one gang, just the Burners.
And it makes sense, especially with like Arkham City. Obviously, you have the Joker gang and the Riddler gang and the Penguin gang all kind of like against each other. Well, sorry, you have Two Faces gang all kind of like warring against each other. You'd think, yeah, like that could have been an easier plug in there. But I think, as you said, Snake, they probably spent a year getting fire. Well, it isn't even real fire propagation, but there is
Very
like fire
impressive
animation in
effects.
this game, which is pretty impressive. And then they were like,
Bloody
we'll build
good
a
for
gang around that.
PS2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get. I'm not like knocking the game. I'm just saying,
Oh, no, of
stupid
course.
childish assumption that was like funny to come back to, and it's like, oh, it was just the Burners all along. Okay.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it would have been nicer if there was just were more. Like, if there was just a. I guess, and like that's the funny thing, because in my head, I feel like the weirdness of the plot isn't probably what dinged it score wise. Because yeah, looking at the reviews of this game, they're pretty low. Funnily enough, I think it was just more the structure of the gameplay that people just didn't particularly jam with. Because again,
It does feel a bit retro, and also I may have been screwed by like the new consoles are out, so anything that's coming out on the old consoles isn't going to be properly evaluated because it's like, oh, why are you on the old console?
you know what I think as well is that like probably you know what the FPS game that was probably the measuring stick for every single game in 2006 was probably Call of Duty 2. Which again,
Oh, yeah.
360 launch game, and that was like the expectation that people had of like every game needs to be like this, you know? Where it's
Yeah.
linear, it's set PC and cinematic, and like levels go on for like 20 minutes, which this ain't it. This is smaller. This is Burnout, you know?
I wonder
it's
if it'd
also-
have been
yeah.
because we talked about Pursuit Force a moment ago, and that was on the PSP. That was on a handheld, and that had that similar bite-sized structure. If Urban Chaos had been on a handheld, would it have done better?
Maybe. Like, if this was a DS game, yeah, people would be talking about this in the same breath of like Metroid Prime Hunters of like, this proves that you can make games work, you know, this genre work on the DS, but also it benefits from a DS structure of being like, you know, bite-sized gameplay. Because I think, Sam, you had the perfect way of playing this game of like, you were playing it in short bursts, like during your vacation. And like, that is this game. This isn't like some, like, I think Call of Duty games you're meant to like sit with them over an entire weekend and just eat it all at once and then do the multiplayer every night afterwards. Which, by the way, this game has multiplayer, which I guess we can very quickly breeze through because I don't think any of us played it.
Yeah, I had to look up videos. It is Police v Burners, which may be another reason why the Burners kind of get analogs of all of your weapons is for, you know, it
Yeah.
kind of also feeds into multiplayer parity because, oh, you've got a taser, they've got a taser equivalent, you've got this, they've got that. It looks very slow and kind of clunky, but there is a little community who are still hosting like 3v3s.
I was going to say, what I managed to read up online is that this game did have like a little bit of juice behind it because it was one of the very few PS2 games that was online. It had online play. So
Yeah, you had that. You had Twisted Metal Black Online. You had you had a
SOCOM.
you had SOCOM. You had an EverQuest online on PS2. Can you bloody imagine that? I can. I had that game. You had 25 to Life.
Oh yeah.
Didn't one of the Burnouts on PS2 have net play as well?
believe it
Burnout
did,
3,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there any other topics that we want to hit on, like the actual game itself of Urban Chaos that we haven't quite got into? Because plot's pretty well covered, and again, how the tone interacts with the dynamics of the game. I think, like, sort of my final thoughts on this is like, I am really glad that I played it, but I also do kind of realize why maybe this isn't talked about that much. But I am genuinely surprised this isn't a more well-known thing, considering Rocksteady today.
It is funny, yeah, that people didn't kind of, even during the Batman stuff, go back and kind of critically reevaluate. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what were these guys doing? And sometimes it just doesn't pan out that way. Like, you know, Demon Souls got a big fucking blow up after Dark Souls got big. This is obviously not quite the same league, different times, different fan bases, but yeah, never quite came for this one, which it is funny to go from ultra-violent cop game to Batman.
Yeah.
But
then
he's an
it's also-
ultra-violent cop.
He is an ultra-violent cop,
Yeah.
that's very true.
He's not. Yeah, but he doesn't kill. He just makes you wish you were dead.
That's true. But it is one of those weird things, because you play the game and you see all these weird plugins of, oh, hey, that comes back for Arkham. Oh, they invented an achievement system before the 360 was a proper thing. Oh, like, it just has all these, like, weird little glimpses of the future, to the extent of, because you started saying the story earlier on, but it didn't quite get finished off of, when I was telling you that I very rarely use the shield. And it was because I didn't have the thing where, when I play a lot of bullet time games, I have to, like, okay, clear my cache. I have to play this game on its own terms. I sat with this and I was, like, purely in the mode of, oh, I've played games like this feels modern enough that, like, my brain just is tuned to it. But to the extent of that, I forgot that I had a shield button.
Did you think you had like regenerating health? Where it's
Yeah,
like,
no, I think that was a little bit of it, as well as that, like, oh yeah, I got regenerating health. That's what's in this game. Again, the way that they handle health in this is cool. The fact that you don't always guarantee it on every level, and it's tied to an NPC that you have to protect. It's a cool touch.
And you only ever get 3 per level on
Yes.
levels where you do have a healer. So it's like, again, kind of going for medals thing. If you're playing for medals or playing for survival, you really start thinking in terms of rationings, like, how daring can I play? Because if you're on low health, you kind of want to get to as lower health as possible to get the most out of your free heals.
Yeah.
It's very tense. It's quite interesting. There's like a little element of long-term strategy to each level that's quite neat.
I'm kind of similar to you, James, and I'm really glad I played it. Very pleasantly surprised by it. There was one mechanic that hacked me off no end throughout the entire game.
Oh no.
Which is, so I would have, say, my assault rifle out or my pistol out or whatever, and I would walk over the first sawn-off shotgun from the level that an enemy had dropped, and it auto-switches to the sawn-off.
Time Splitters
no.
comes back to
Yeah,
haunt you.
I mean, James saw me on stream. I went to the first thing I do on games in this era, I go to the options, I toggle auto switch right the fuck off.
It's
Oh,
as
you
you
can turn
said,
it
Sam,
off?
it's the spectre
you
of
can turn it
GoldenEye.
off.
All Brits have to make their FPS games like GoldenEye, down to the detriment of James Bond has now picked up assault rifle. He's now picked up shotgun. And it's like, no, I just want to stick with the fucking water PPK. What are you doing?
Nah, you can turn auto switch off, which you should on these games, because
yeah.
the mistake all these games make is they just go, if it's not just auto switch on any new gun, it's most power. And the shotgun is always going to have the most power, but it's also going to have dog shit range, which is kind of that's your mechanical trade-off. So, you know, it's always the short-sightedness of
It's
those
fucking.
systems.
It's like all these games of this era have Doom Brain, where it's like, well, every gun just works the same, except it's more powerful each time. So why wouldn't you go for the more powerful gun? But it's like, no, we're now in the era where you have shotgun spread or like, you know, all this fucking realistic stuff. Stop doing that. And then when the 360 era like got moving like a year later, yeah, you never got that anymore because Call of Duty killed that dead. As did Halo, funnily enough. So.
See, it led into another issue. I started missing like modern radial wheels and other thing because it'd
Ooh,
bring me
yeah.
to the sawn-off that I've walked over. Right? And I'm like, shit, I want to get back to the assault rifle I had. Tap, 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 tap. And like the more of those extra missions I had done, and the more weapons I had unlocked, the longer that fucking list was.
That is kind of the problem with it. I mean, my problem with the weapon unlocks was I liked the full auto pistol, but I was like, man, I wish I could unequip certain upgrades because I don't want a scope. I don't want a scope on my pistol. This is a weird thing because I know it's a pistol. I know a scope just works the same in a video game, but do either of you have this where, like, if there's a scope on a revolver in the game, it just feels weird to use? Like, I'm never comfortable with it.
Well, we're on a revolver particularly because usually they have shitloads of knockbacks, which just kicks you out of the scope usually. But yeah, I find scopes on pistols both look weird, and I feel like as a concept they are weird. Like it makes more sense in a game where you only have one gun and you're constantly upgrading it. Like at least with that, I go, okay, I kind of get it. But yeah, like just rocking out with a scope pistol, yeah, it's just very. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's kind of odd.
Yeah, I don't know why I have such a weird visceral thing of like, it's just wrong. It's like a hand with an extra finger to me. It's just not a fan of it. But
I think it's something about the proportion of the scope to the gun, because like on an assault rifle or something, the scope's relatively small in comparison.
Yeah, and
but on a
you're looking
handgun,
into-
you're like doubling the size of the gun.
And also, you
Yeah.
can like line up your kind of face with a scope on it. Whereas like holding a scope on a pistol, it just seems an uncomfortable position to me.
People at home aren't going to appreciate this, but me and Sam are on webcam. But like, I'm just imagining somebody using a scope pistol, but it's like they're using like an old-fashioned, like, you know, pirate's telescopes. They've just got like the pistol in their hand, and they're just like, I see him.
They're gonna knock themselves in the face.
Well,
doing
no, exactly. You get like
Yeah.
a cartoon black eye around you, like after you. Yeah, especially if you're using a fucking revolver, which is the kickback of a horse. Like you'll blind yourself doing that.
Yeah, you do get a revolver in this game in the very late stages. It's a nice. It's like a one-hit kill, but I preferred the assault rifle because this is a game where I just kind of, if I was in danger, I just wanted to be putting more bullets out rather
What
than
do you
like.
spray? Yeah.
Yeah. But the revolver's fun. It's chunky. It's got the satisfying pow to it.
That's the other thing I found, and I'm not sure if like this is just how it felt or how it actually was, but when I started getting like sawn-off shotguns, I thought, oh great, at the very least that will be extra shotgun ammo for my automatic shotgun that I've unlocked from the extra missions. But it seems like the ammo pool is still separate. Like all shotgun shells cannot be used in all shotguns.
There are different gauges of shotgun. It could be weapon balance, but there is 12 gauge and there is like smaller gauges than that. An auto shotgun might not be using 12 gauge.
Yeah, it just kind of it
It
felt
is
weird
a
because I was
weird
like,
thing
oh,
to
I can
kind of-
start replenishing my ammo now that they're using shotguns. And I could, but not for the shotgun I wanted to.
Oh yeah. I do
Yeah.
like that. I didn't use it much, but I do like that sort of because I do like you could fire both barrels and it is like a miniature explosion when you do that. I guess all shots are a miniature explosion, but this is like big screen warping. It feels like you get sent like a foot back when you fire. It's like, oh man,
It's that thing that
that's
like
a gun.
every FPS game should feel like, unless you're going for realism, every FPS game should feel like this and Black are kind of like every FPS game should feel like this in regards to their kinetics, you know?
Yeah, like you pull a trigger and it just feels like, oh, I have just changed the world.
So to clarify there, because it's something I don't think we actually discuss, a lot of the guns have an alt firing mode. So
That's
R1
right.
is normal,
Yeah.
and R2 is like a burst fire, or in this case, both barrels of the shotgun. It adds some nice variety and weapon identity.
Yeah, it's one that we didn't mention it for now because it's very easy to forget. Because I guess most of the time, I was just kind of in a mode of like slice the pie, clear rooms, bang bang, or I was opposite, you know, shield out, taser in hand, like, yeah, come get electrocuted.
It's systems on top of systems, which is one of those things that you'll always end up forgetting something, like me and the shield for most of the game.
Yeah, I never used the burst fire on the rifle.
Yeah.
I'd never found like a niche for it where I was like, oh, I need a free round right now.
I did in the... there's a level where you start in an alley, and you can't go in the alley because it's on fire. But the fireman you need to save is already down there, and the guy's like up on a roof behind the fire. So there I was like, okay, I've got a scope, I've got a three round burst, I can just pop a pop.
Yeah.
Almost treat it like a sniper in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free round
Yeah.
burst is kind of good for that because you can go on the chest. And in a lot of games, I think it's like you start on the chest, it will trail up and give you a headshot.
I was going to say, this
it's
game
just like-
doesn't have a sniper, does it?
No.
No. Closest
Yeah,
you get is
which-
just you get scopes on your assault rifle.
Which, in fairness, like, I think that's always like the sign of like a bad FPS game is like, you know, oh, it's only going to be about urban cockplay. Okay, but we're still going to give you a sniper and a rocket launch. Like, rocket launcher maybe not so much because that's always like a fun, silly weapon. But like,
I mean, the enemies get one.
Yeah.
And that was fun, actually, darting
Actually, yeah,
between the
true.
openings in the sewer while he's firing rockets down. That was a fun little...
That is a good set piece. That's
Yeah.
like that is one of the better like optional boss takedowns. But granted, that's the end of the level, so that's not quite optional. But it's how you take him down, I suppose.
sure.
I
Snake,
do like how
what are
once
your-
he throws his rocket launcher away to come face you, it's like, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah. Snake, you got any final thoughts on the game? Hey, I imagine you still like it. Like, do you like it more than you think you did when you were a kid? Is the question.
I appreciate it. I think I like it more than I did when I was a kid. I actually beat it this time,
There you
so
go.
I had fun. I got as I said, I got half the medals. I got quite a bit. I had a lot of fun just kind of grinding out a couple of stages, see like, okay, can I do this? Can I do that? Kinetics are fun. There's just enough to bring you back. It does occasionally have little side objectives, very rarely. Like, there's a couple of optional cops you can save in a couple levels to get an AI buddy.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's, like, enough to really call it a big feature, because it's just totally sporadic and random.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with it. It is a very interesting start to a company. It's, like, not where you'd imagine their legacy would begin, and I guess, as I've learned, it's not where their legacy began.
No, when I learnt the context of this was a held over project, that made this click into place of like, because my initial thought was that, oh, was this like a tech demo for Unreal Engine? Well, UE wasn't on PS. Well, there was some UE games on PS2, but like not as ubiquitous as when the 360 came out, which became like the era of Unreal Engine. We had like Gears of War and Mass Effect and stuff like that, but. No, I mean, this uses Havoc physics, which, I mean, everything at the time uses Havoc physics, but that's just middleware to plug in for ragdolls and stuff. So I was like, well, okay, well, if this isn't like a tech demo for what this company could do, and again, I saw the name Urban Chaos and was like, oh, was this like a work-for-hire job of like Eidos were like, hey, you know, make this game. So like, yeah, learning that there was this big lineage from the SWAT games and Argonaut, I was like, okay, this now makes sense. But then that makes Batman such an outlier of like, okay, but how did you go from that to... How did you go from Urban Chaos to that? Because at least I can understand the lineage of Urban Chaos now versus the lineage of Batman. So, because, yeah, like, when I said earlier about Sefton Hill was the producer on... well, yeah, and he ended up the producer on Urban Chaos as well. He then went on to direct Batman Arkham Asylum. And so it's a thing of, okay, but, like, where did that idea come from? You know, like, did that begin with Batman, or did that begin with like making a 3D action game, or what really? So
it's sort of like an electrician suddenly becoming a baker.
Yeah,
I mean, I can kind of see it because like the Burner Gang does feel like kind of a you know an Arkham gang in a way.
Yeah,
in a Gotham gang, sorry, a kind of Gotham-y kind of like, hey, here's our gang of hats, you know, super cop. Kind of translates to Cape Vigilante.
You got all these gadgets, system. Like Batman has all the gadgets. And I suppose I would say is
I
that...
do think it is like a weird lateral shift. I can see the confusion, but I also kind of think, yeah, I can kind of see the weird little
spiritually,
links. Yeah.
And, I mean, as I always say to people, the Unreal Engine is a fucking FPS engine. Like, they have to do so much work to try and get that to do anything apart from first, but like Unreal Engine 3, you have to do so much work to get that to do anything other than FPS games that they were probably just well equipped of, well, we have a shooter under our belt, so we can at least come in with that and then start doing programming to make it into something else, because you have third-person shooting in Batman when it uses Batarangs. So.
Isn't there a multiplayer mode on one of the later Batman games where some people are in
Arkham
first person?
Origins.
Yeah, Arkham Origins has a kind of a... It's 3 versus 2, where it's you have Bane's gang, Joker's gang, where that plays like a third-person shooter, and then you have 2 players who are Batman and Robin, and that plays like an Arkham game.
That sounds kind of awesome. I'm guessing the fact I don't hear people talk about it means it didn't quite live up to how fun that idea sounds in my head.
I think it's an issue of, and we'll sidebar a little bit before the end of the episode to maybe talk about this, but. This came out in the era which I have no idea when we're ever going to cover this on Bullet Time, despite this being an idea we've talked about since the inception of this podcast, which is it came out in the height of how do we keep people, like, how do we curb secondhand sales, add a multiplayer mode. So it was competing with the likes of Bioshock 2's multiplayer, Dead Space 2's multiplayer, Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, all these games that had these additional multiplayer modes that were then trying to compete with Halo 3 and Halo Reach.
Yeah.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
This was coming up short in the battle of the welterweights, basically.
Exactly right. It was a secondary mode to a game that, like, you weren't there to play the multiplayer. You were there for the single player. And even then, it was Origins, which had already, like, fucking Square Enix already had come out and said, Warner Brothers had come out and said, this isn't a real Batman game, because the Arkham guys working on Night. Here's something to tide you over, made by one of our other teams, that they shot themselves in the foot with that to begin with. So, yeah.
Origins got done dirty in a lot of ways.
Origins is like my second favorite out of the Batmans as well. Because it's made
It's
by
bloody good.
It's made by a lot of, because it's Warner Brothers Montreal. It's a lot of people who had come over from Ubisoft Montreal, who are all Assassin's Creed guys. So they just know how to do open world games in a way that it took fucking. And even then, I don't even think Rocksteady have quite got a grip on open worlds, because Night is the nearest they got. City's not great at handling its open world, and then Snake, you watch me play Suicide Squad.
Yeah. It
good
didn't.
open
It's
world.
like they lost some of the juice from 2006.
Oh yeah, I mean it's funny because there are a lot of programming guys that cross over from Urban Chaos into Arkham Asylum, but it's basically like once they have this dub under their belt, they can just start building their team up, which is where you get like the art, David Hager, the art director, and Paul Dini and stuff like that on the project, which is what really creates like the Arkham identity from there. And I will say, so sort of talk about that in a wider context then, is that I was only able to find one number for how many sales this game did, and apparently it was 80k units of like sales, which, looking into it and running the numbers, apparently this was a decent success for Eidos, because again, they bought a game that was already mostly done, funded on Argonaut money that obviously, left with Argonaut. So like, they only had to throw a tiny bit of money on this, tiny bit of a marketing budget, and it got that. And I always think about this in Eidos because, why does nobody talk about this game? And it's like, it was an FPS, game by the Rocksteady guys. This was one of 16 games that Eidos released in 2006.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Including fucking Tomb Raider Legends, which I imagine when you're writing the pie chart for the marketing budget for Eidos games, you give Lara an entire half, and then everything else is split up against every other Eidos game, including Hitman Blood Money.
Oh, Jesus, right, yeah, it's gone. It's dead in the water. That's not happening.
No, so it's like this game fucking snuck out in like early on in the year of just like, oh hey guys, I'm here, and it's like,
It's kind of weird because they
boom,
gave...
Tomb Raider Legend, boom, Hitman Blood Money, boom, Championship Man. All these fucking Eidos games. And
They had to rename it from Zero Tolerance when someone in the boardroom joked zero marketing budget, and they were like, fuck, we're owned, man.
boom, boom.
We're Urban
Here's
Chaos
a weird thing,
now.
though. Now that I know that context, Tomb Raider Legend and Hitman Blood Money both got Xbox 360 ports. And Urban Chaos, just original Xbox, mate, that'll do.
Yeah, no, they didn't bother thinking about it being a port shop.
No need to up-res this.
And again, I wonder if it had got a 360 port, would it have done better? I mean, I don't know, because it's like when Monty Burns gets Three Stooges syndrome and like all the diseases that try and get into his body. The fucking launch of the 360, despite the fact that I don't think a lot of people look at it that fondly, apart from maybe, what's it called? Call of Duty 2, maybe King Kong. That had like 1,000 games on launch day, and all of them a lot of them aren't very good. It's just
See,
like,
that's another weird one, though, because King Kong, there's a PS2 version, and there's an
There's a
Xbox 360
GameCube.
version. Again.
yeah. No,
There's
this
a
was,
GameCube version of that bloody game.
yeah, this was the era of like, you'd get the dodgy 360 port, but you'd have to buy it because it was HD, and the more competent PS2 like end of console port of those games. So like, which again, maybe Urban Chaos might have done a squeaked a tiny bit better if it came out on the 360, but apparently 80k. But this is what I mean. It's like, Eidos had 16 games out that year. It only needed like Tomb Raider to pop to do well. And hey, Tomb Raider Legend was like one of the best selling in the series, apart from, because isn't the thing, Sam, that like the original Tomb Raider 1 was the best selling in the series until Tomb Raider 2013, which did like bananas numbers.
I don't know the sales numbers. I know that we were on... So people got bored of Tomb Raider Mania around about Chronicles. Angel of Darkness almost killed
it dead. Yeah.
And then Legend, it was like suddenly popped back off, and everyone was like, no, this is a fresh take we can vibe with.
Yeah, no, people like Legend, and I think as well it's that Lara... Oh, I mean, we're getting in the weeds now, but like Lara Mania was still because of the films. But like, they've introduced Legend, and it has this issue where it's like Crystal Dynamics, and they're like, hey, Lara is back, and boom, bigger than ever kind of thing. And I think people like, yeah, and people like Crystal Dynamics because they had done the Soul Reaver and stuff like that beforehand. And again, I think this is a thing that I miss about like this era, and especially because all the research I did for this episode, but all the Tomb Raider research I did as well, I do genuinely miss Eidos as an entity in regards to they were guys who kind of knew you could put your money on like a big triple, like basically Lara allowed them to do so many things. Like Tomb Raider money was always guaranteed, so they would then use that cash to put it into maybe a AA size project, which, hey, this is weird and it could pop. Which was the case with Hitman and was the case with like Championship Manager and a bunch of these smaller things.
Yeah, we're just happy to, at this time as well, make some cheesy video games, which is what Urban Chaos is, up and down.
Which is partially what I think, Snake, because I mentioned this to you when we did the Free Radical episode, but obviously they did Time Splitters 1 and 2 under Eidos, but then had to go elsewhere for Second Sight. But the initial plan for Second Sight was that it was called Redemption, it was going to have demons in it. And it's because the guy who ran Eidos was Ian Livingston, aka the fighting fantasy guy. He was a turbo nerd. He founded Warhammer. Warhammer's the shop, right?
Games Workshop.
Games Workshop.
Yeah, sorry.
I think they've rebranded as Warhammer now.
Yeah, but yeah, he founded the Games Workshop and then went to go found Eidos. So he was a turbo nerd, and he was like, "Oh, this game sounds cool. Yeah, let's pump some money into. Oh, Soul Reaver, you play as a vampire with no mouth. Shit, yeah, let's put a shitload of money behind this." Like,
surprised this game doesn't have a demon in it.
Yeah, maybe Ian wasn't keeping an eye on that one, but he was on Tomb Raider. He was like, "When are we gonna put a?"
He heard about the burners and thought, "Oh, that's a mythological creature. They don't need my input. I'll leave well."
He saw their designs and he thought they were demons, and he was like, "You got it. This is good." But yeah, I mean, so no, Eidos has just been on my mind. On like, I wrote this on the script, not that it has much to do with this video, but like, sorry, this podcast, but like. Just the 6 years that they had when they became part of Square Enix. And Square at the time was just like, this Eidos stuff is shit. Why aren't you making Final Fantasy VII numbers? But like, 2010, Just Cause 2, Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, fucking bangers. 2011, Deus Ex Human Revolution, banger. 2012, Sleeping Dogs, banger. 2013, Tomb Raider, like... They had like a banger game come out like every single year that they were like operating as a business. But then as the 360 era kicked in and HD became such a big thing, they had less and less money to spend on like AA stuff. It's such a shitter. You know?
Yeah, it's kind of non-chronological, but it will come up again or earlier on the police brutality miniseries of the death of the AAA market is kind of a damn shame, and it always will be.
AA, yeah.
AA, sorry, yeah. The death of the AAA can't come soon enough. But,
well, I was going to say, if we're staring down the barrel of the death of the AAA market at the moment, which, again, to go all the way back to where Rocksteady today, obviously Warner Brothers bought them out because they were like, "Oh, we own Batman! Oh, we own you now!" And then they're like, Suicide Squad, this is going to make us so much money. Oh, this has only sold 30,000 copies. Oh, we're dead. We're dead in the water. Dead and dying. Shit. But
damn, we spent 10 years chasing a trend that only one game has ever done okay with. Two, technically,
yeah.
Warframe and Destiny. I guess 3, technically, because there's Destiny 2.
That's very true. But, like, in Destiny's case, it's like, if that game was a success, it's still the fucking death of Rocksteady, because they'd just be making updates for Suicide Squad every year since.
Yeah, that seemed like the odd thing, because, you remember that failed game from Platinum, that Babylon's Fall thing?
Yes.
Where I swear there was a press release that just didn't get much coverage, because it was mainly people were upset as like, Platinum, why are you doing this? And I get that thing, but I swear there was a press release where someone said, we want a game like this to go over well to keep our actual projects ticking over. Which is that's a very naive approach, it sounds like, just from the amount of work it takes maintaining one of those games, even if they do succeed.
to date this episode massively, I don't know whether you saw it yesterday, but that press release came out from Remedy about Project Condor, which has now turned out to be a co-op shooter version of, like, a live service version of Control. And people have now, like, rightly said to them, these aren't the games we like. Like, we love Alan Wake and we love Control, but we don't, like, why are you doing this? And the response they gave was, well, you guys like this, but we want to we want to broaden our audience. We want the multiplayer guys. Like, we want to show them what we do well. And it is just that naive thing of like, oh, honey, no. Like, you know, that's only going to go so, like, the multiplayer guys only want to play Siege.
Please don't burn your
Fortnite.
whole company to the ground in this attempt, because people like what you're doing.
It's kind of like, it's like trying to sell milk to a dairy farmer. They are good. They've got, they only need, this is the thing, these Forever games, they only need one. And they've got one. That they
How are you going to pull someone who's been playing Destiny 2 for like 10 years off of Destiny 2? Because they're in on Destiny 2. You can't.
And again,
replace
just
it.
the fucking the king of context of bullet time is like, again, all these games that we talk about, which are like, you know, they're not 10 out of 10s or whatever, but like they came from developers who, talking about Warframe, Digital Extremes made a lot of really interesting FPS games. They did the multiplayer mode of BioShock 2. They can't make anything else anymore apart from Warframe. Fucking Bungie invented Halo, and now they're here making Destiny 2 updates and trying to get a marathon game out the door, which nobody knows what the fuck that's meant to be.
Well, it was meant to be an extraction shooter, and now it's
it's Valorant.
Now it's that's it. Now it's Valorant. Fucking hell.
Very cool. Love it.
Just what the world needed. Another Valorant.
Oh, yeah,
One just wasn't enough.
This is a weird thing, because they're already, like, these people are good. They've got their game that they're invested in, they've got their loot, they've got their history, they've got their gear. It's almost like going up to someone who is, like, on heroin or crack cocaine, just, like, fully in and addicted, and being like, we've got a little weed if you're interested. Like, they're so far past that, mate.
It's just someone who's doing freebase in the tail, and it's just like, do you want to buy a backy, mate? It's like,
It's this funny thing where, like, because James, you like the mid 2000s Syndicate game, yeah?
I sure do, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like in a kind of wider thing. It's like there were Syndicate fans who were like, we don't want our franchise to be this. But it's like, well, that's the big genre at the moment, so it's going to be that. And it's like, how Marathon especially gets me, because Marathon is a niche property anyway. You're not going to popularize it by just making it the genre that you think is pumping money at the moment. No. Marathon players don't want Valorant. They want a single player fucking game.
The funny thing is that, like, how would you modernize Marathon? Because Halo was already them kind of modernizing it a little bit, but then it will purely just be picking up the plot. And if that's going to be the case, you would have to reboot it anyway, because nobody apart from like video makers know what the plot of.
Only Mandalore knows what the plot of Marathon
No, exactly.
is.
Like, you're gonna put a DVD of Mandalore's video in every single copy of Marathon to be like, okay, here's it's like when Super Mario Galaxy 2 came out and they put the DVD in it of like how to play the game, which
had vital lore in that DVD.
Do you want to take a guess what this game is sitting at on Metacritic?
67.
67 from Sam. I'll tell you what, then, higher or lower?
I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go 59.
Oh, well, you're both cynical, because this game has a mixed to average reception of 73 out of 100.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, not bad.
This is a solid swimming in 7 games. 21 positive reviews to 13 mixed and 1 negative. The highest positive review that's on here is a 9 out of 10 from GameSpy, written at the time, which says, some will take urban chaos at face value and feel good inside with the game's many nods at everyday heroes of America 10 USA.
Oh,
yeah. Others will take the game in its blatant sensationalism and wonder if it's not so subtle satire. Regardless, Urban Chaos Riot Response is lots of fun and merits a look from anyone who enjoys shooters. I think that's probably the most positive review of it. I would even say it's more positive than potentially my review of this game. I think this is a solid 7. But yeah, GameSpy were keen on it, as were PSM2 Magazine UK, which I think was the unofficial PS2 magazine at the time, they gave it an 85 and said, always enjoyable and never dull. It might lack polish in some areas, but it makes up for it with loads of character and plenty of kick-ass, laugh-out-loud aggression.
Hell yeah.
This game is funny, I will say. Like, it is very much in that I can't believe what I'm doing sort of thing, but like, not in a, like, oh my god, the game's breaking while I'm playing. No, like, they're very much in on the joke with you. Which, again, is surprising that the Batman games don't, apart from maybe the dark humor elements, don't touch on that much, but... Cool, let's see.
You send a guy flying with a shotgun.
tongue-in-cheek content in those.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The game puts you in the right mind that when you blow away a guy with a shotgun, you think that's awesome.
Yeah. 79 from IGN. If you can get past the ordinary textures, bland character designs, and strange presentation of Urban Chaos Riot Response, you'll find a technically capable game that offers a lovely little suite of gameplay touches that make it very worthwhile.
Is that a souffle?
No, it's SURFEIT. I've never heard that word before. The most negative review, this isn't the most negative review. Edge gave it a 6, but as we talked about in another episode, an Edge 6 is like a IGN 7 or 8, so not too bad. Ultimately, Urban Chaos doesn't have the reach to deliver what it promises and ends up retreating into cliche. A few months more, a few dollars more, and this could have made a much more defiant stand, which...
If
they threw more money at it...
Yeah, and it's also late in the PS2's lifespan. Time is burning on that front.
Oh, God, yeah. And, like, I'm trying to think if they had thrown more money at it, like... Again, probably just to get it to maybe just a 360 port. But then... Actually, I wonder with that, because, like, the 360 did launch with the Xbox Live Arcade, so people might have been primed brain-wise for something a little bit more arcadey. I always think about that in regards to that game that I want to do on Bullet Time at some point, but I want to get a few more FPSs in. But Bizarre Creations The Club, which is is Mario Kart, but as a target shooter. And I think it's pretty cool, but it is also, like, it just failed at the time because people were like, why isn't this Call of Duty? Fuck you. So...
PS3 emulation might be the way to go on that because of games for Windows Live.
I mean, hey, I actually own a physical PS3 now, so I can
there you go.
Play it
you
on
can
that.
Emulate it on your physical PS3
by
buying a
falls
disc
into
and
the
putting it in there.
same because there's that bucket of like Wet and John Woo's Stranglehold.
Oh,
and,
yeah. God. Nastiest review though is 50 from 1UP, who said, "Finally, the multiplayer component isn't bad, but there are two things that are glaringly missing. First, there's no straight-up deathmatch mode. Players will be taking sides on either the cops or criminals, and the sides aren't particularly well balanced. Second, there's the inexcusable absence of split-screen play."
No, yeah, that feels like a 2002 kind of style review where they were really... you needed split screen or that was an automatic point docking.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm annoyed when games don't have split screen now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you have a HD telly, why wouldn't you do split screen? I guess it must be harder to implement than online. I suppose
consoles still have multiple controller ports. I guess the Switch doesn't. Yeah, I'm a PC. I guess I'm a PC guy, so I'm a bit.
I'm looking at my Series S, which doesn't have that. Only has like one USB port, but that's for like wireless controllers. I think you can put like 8 controllers or 9 controllers to a single console. Not that
I did 6 controllers when my mate visited, and we had the kids, and we all jumped on Shredder's Revenge. We got that up to 6 local.
Oh,
very nice.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read one final review, which isn't the meanest one, but it did fucking throw me for a loop. 58 from the AV Club. Finally, a twitch and kill action game that right-wingers can get behind.
Oh, that's a bombshell. That is a shotgun.
That seems a little... I mean, calling this game right-wing is the same as, like, calling, I don't know, like, RoboCop right-wing. It's just kind of... I mean, from a certain angle, potentially, that might be true.
I mean, if you just see an American flag and you clap, you're in.
If you salute the flag every time you see it, yeah. God.
I do, but it's just a poster of Marlo Briggs and the Mask of Death on my
you
wall.
You just keep saluting your poster of Marlo Briggs.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I feel like an
I
American.
wonder how
when I do
the
that.
right wing would react to that little teeth shine at the end, that little glint.
Oh fuck, we forgot to mention that. Okay, yeah, no, I'm just gonna quickly say, so this game ends with you having beaten all of the yeah, literally it is the stupidest game on earth because it's like, oh no, you actually do stop gang. Okay.
How
Gangs
did
on
we
a
forget? Yeah, fuck. How did we forget to mention the fucking ending of this?
yeah, okay, so the ending of the game is that you stop all gang war ever. Like literally gangs aren't a systemic issue that down to more points and and trying to solve gangs in one way creates gangs in another way. Oh no, you literally solve gang forever. Like in this game, which cool.
By dropping the last ever gang member in a meat grinder and then listening to him squelch.
Well, in the mission before that, you track down where they're keeping a nuke.
Yeah,
And they're like...
I forgot
and then
about the nuke.
And then they say... And then they kind of come and they applaud you and they're like, thanks, Nick, you saved America. And I'm like, it's one nuke. How did I save America?
Oh god, no, you've got Adam Wolf, your boss, is with you, and they come up and they're like, the president is on the phone and he wants to personally congratulate you. And he's like, the president's gonna have to wait. First, I'm gonna buy Nick a drink.
It's so good. Like, just... It's like the most 80s parody ending
It's fucking bad. It's bad dude shit.
Yeah.
Like it's like an 80s arcade game which would have ended with Ronald Reagan saying, "Hey boys, thanks for rescuing me. Let's go for a hamburger," kind of thing.
And it's not just like that, yeah. So President is fobbed off so you can go get a beer with Adam Wolf, the guy you saved. But then it's like, okay, how did I save America? And then the next thing is like, oh yeah, all these power stations were chained up. So if one was blown up, they would have all exploded, killing 300 million people.
Let me put it in the cadence of what was the name again? Lonnie
York.
Lonnie York. Lonnie.
But she's just like, Nick Mason was able to dismantle a bomb today, which if it went off would have killed 300 million Americans.
Oh no, they tried to doubt it. They said there rumors of a WMD at the site have not been confirmed. However, radioactive levels are higher than usual.
Oh yeah.
And it's almost like they say it in the same tone you would say, there's a chance of rain today.
Yeah, no. But like the way that she explains it could have killed 300 million people is the same way that she'd explain that a Shih Tzu won at Crofts. Like it's
a bit of light relief.
And then she looks at the camera and goes, and it's all thanks to Nick Mason. Thank you, Nick. You'll forever be in our hearts. And when she says that, her tough fucking I'm going to put it as the image for this podcast, but her two twinkles as she says that.
It's even more cringe than that. She goes, Nick, everyone at the station salutes you.
That's
and
it!
Like,
Ding!
Finally, a game right-wingers can get behind.
I mean, I can certainly get behind it, and
I can get behind it, I suppose, yeah. This game will link people across the aisle.
To quote the XCOM streams, soon may they return. As soon as it got to that, we salute you and the little teeth twinkle, I was just like, fucking clap. Fucking clap.
clap for that. Fucking clap. God. I think that's the thing, is that if you play this game for 5 minutes, you'll think this is a stupid parody. If you play for an hour, you think, oh no, actually, there's not a parody. If you finish it, you go, oh no, actually, this game was a fucking parody. Because yeah, it ends like... Again, the escalation is so much that they go from just having meat cleavers to rocket launchers and then having a fucking nuke, right? Like a gang who can barely dress themselves just has a nuke. Cool.
And then the news is just super blasé about it because that was America after 9/11, which it wasn't really. They were super terrified of everything.
I mean, that was partially in my mind, and again, because I always think it's a bit of a meme in my head of just like, oh, this game came out after 9/11, so how did that affect things? But this is very much like height of Fox News and more. I mean, the graphics of the news station looks like kind of the O'Reilly factor in regards to just sweeping like pieces of nonsense behind it, But
I do worry about that newscaster simply because every time they do one of these, it's randomly like a different time in the top left-hand corner. There's bits where she's like, good night, America, at like 2 p.m. But also there's times where she's like, breaking news story, and it's like 1:15 in the morning. It's like, when do you get to go home?
she doesn't.
No, she lives in that chair.
She loves the news too much.
If this game wasn't named like Urban Chaos Riot Response or Zero Tolerance, I bet it could have just been called like the Riot Act or the Patriot Act or something.
They should have called it Patriot Act. I think that would have done really well for it if they had done that.
Yeah, just it would have gone perfectly. No one would have had any issue with calling this game the Patriot Act.
They should have called it Cops versus Gangs. There we go. That would have people would have agreed with that. That would have stopped the hot coffee. People wouldn't be looking at the hot coffee mod at the time. They'd be looking at that instead. So, God. Anyways, speaking of hot coffee, let's do the quiz because we're at that time of the show now. Now, once again, we're taking this from the UK chart track, which makes sense because we've got two Brits on the podcast, and they're the only people who cover it for the years that we talk about. This game was released in the EU first on May 19th, 2006, which means that it would have qualified for the charts Friday that week. Now, before we start, do you both want to take a guess of where this may have qualified? There are 40 places that it potentially could have come in.
I don't think
Urban Chaos Riot Response was.
Yeah.
I don't think it charted.
You're saying didn't chart.
I'm gonna say didn't chart.
I'm going to make a Kevin Smith reference and say 37.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to say you're both wrong, but Sam is technically the closest because it did get a number on the board. It came in this week at number 17.
Oh.
Fucking hell.
Did much better than either of our expectations.
Did not hit the top 10, but it certainly did, it made a mark on the charts. Granted, it does disappear the week afterwards. And the funny thing is that I was saying earlier about Eidos just being like, they had like 16 games out that year. Quite a few of them are on this chart, funnily enough. So let's get into that. As we start with number one in the charts, a non-mover this week is a sports game.
Well, time to just cycle through all of those again.
There you go.
Is it
FIFA 07.
Ooh, it's not FIFA 07, but it is a FIFA game.
Oh, was this one of their like
Street?
Road to World Cup ones?
It is one of the World Cup ones. Snake, what did you say?
I said FIFA Street, but that's wrong, clearly.
That's incorrect. But yeah, it is their World Cup. So if you remember what the World Cup was in 2006, I'll get you that point.
Nope.
Okay.
Can I just start listing countries?
It wasn't one of... No, I will say it's a country...
No, we didn't host it. Jesus,
It's a country that's in the EU. Very close to us, but not super close.
Just going to chuck random country names like France.
Not France.
Germany.
Italy.
Snake, did you say Germany?
I said Germany.
Snake, the number one this week is FIFA World Cup Germany 2006 from EA Canada and EA Sports. So, there you go. Right, number two this week, up from number 4, is another football game.
Pro Evo.
Yeah, it is. Pro Evolution Soccer 5 from the Konami Corporation and Konami Games. Now, down from number 2 last week to number 3 is another Eidos game.
Tomb Raider Legend.
It is Tomb Raider Legend from Crystal Dynamics and Eidos.
Laura, can't you give Nick Mason a chance?
No, she won't. She put 2 bullets in. She thought Nick Mason was a polar bear and shot him dead. Not good.
Rest in
Speaking
peace.
of shooting animals dead, up from number 7 last week to number 4 is a DS game.
Well, I was going to say Cabela's Big Game Hunting, but I don't think that was on the DS.
Unfortunately not. This is a DS game and it is published by Nintendo.
Is it Nintendogs?
About shooting animals dead.
It is not Nintendo Dogs. It is their other big franchise starring animals.
Nintendo Cats.
Not Nintendo Cats.
Animal Crossing.
It is Animal Crossing, but which one?
Wide World?
Yeah, you know what? You both get points because it is Animal Crossing Wild World. Yeah. Developed and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo DS. It's funny because when we did the Black episode, I think I had to give this clue as well.
I remember me and Hamish were fucking struggling with the Animal Crossing.
I gave the clue that the subtitle was a Cat Stevens song, and he just went through every single one he could think of. Now, number 5 in the charts, down from 3rd place, is another Eidos game.
Hitman Blood Money.
It is not Hitman Blood Money.
Fuck.
God, we
Our
went
chat
over
from
it.
earlier is
Yeah,
got a good
that-
handy.
I mean, you remember it better than I do, probably. Because I just remember Hitman, Blood Money, and Tomb Raider, and those are both off the board.
I give you a clue, it's a sports game.
Sports that they do.
By
Well,
Eidos.
sports simulation, technically.
Championship Manager.
It is Championship Manager
yeah.
2006 from Gusto Games and Eidos. Pretty cool. Now, number 6 is a new entry. So, I thought that this film came out way before this game did, but I think it's a tie-in game to a film that is like it's the end of a trilogy, and it's a big film this year, and it's the tie-in game to that. And I guess the clue I'll give is based on a Marvel property.
Blade?
No,
It's not Blade and it's not Iron Man.
I was reading wrong thing. X-Men 3? No, that didn't have a movie tie-in.
Well, Snake, I'm going to give you the point because it is X-Men: the official game
Oh.
by Z-Axis Games and Activision. Yeah, this is why I was confused. It's called X-Men: the official game, but it's like, well, X-Men came out in 1999. Last Stand, I think, came out in either 06 or 05, so that's maybe you're tying to that, but then why wouldn't you call it X-Men 3, the game of the movie?
Yeah. X-Men 3, The Other Last Stand.
Yeah. Now, down one place, number 7 this week. And this is an exciting one because this is a fucking 360 launch game that no one remembers. It's a first-person shooter as well.
Perfect Dark Zero.
It is not Perfect Dark Zero, unfortunately.
First-person shooter launch game.
It is a first-person shooter launch game. This isn't much of a useful clue, but they showed this game off so much to advertise the 360 to regards of all the screenshots were lies. The game didn't look anything close to what they showed off.
Wow, I'm blanking. Because I could just remember that in Quake. But
I'll give you a clue. It's a Ubisoft game.
Not King Kong.
It's not King Kong.
No, people like that game. And there wasn't many lies in that one's advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think what was actually on the 360 at launch.
Yeah, no, Perfect Dark Zero was literally all I had to go on with 360 launch title FPS.
Well,
Yeah,
this
when you
is-
jumped in with that, I thought, you bastard.
Yeah.
This is Ubisoft published. It's developed by Red Storm. Red Storm are famous for this one particular series.
Oh, Operation Flashpoint.
Oh, it's not Operation Flashpoint. No, it's who's the funny little American man who writes books?
Oh, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas.
Not Vegas, no, but it is Tom Clancy's something. It's not
Ghost
a-
Recon. Is it one of the Ghost Recon games?
It is, but can you remember which one?
3.
Advanced Warfare?
It is Tom
Warfighter?
Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare for Ubisoft.
Warfighter. Yeah. I thought that game was alright. I think that's not a first person shooter though. That's third
Wait,
person.
Wait, is it? I thought it was
Yeah.
first person.
Yeah, it's third person. It's over shoulder.
Really? I thought you could
Yeah.
swap between them.
I just remember it in third person. That's because I remember the targeting system was that it would go closer in.
Oh yeah, and it had. The
I've got a very weird memory of that game actually. It was just you know how games, like your allies would be green or blue and the enemies would be red.
I do.
In that,
remember.
you could be on the red team, so the first round I was in, I killed all my teammates because we were the red team.
Whoops.
And they were very polite about it, because they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm killing the enemy. It's like, no, we're red. And it's like, oh, fuck, sorry. Because I killed the whole team by accident.
Yeah, no, this is a
doing
game that I just remembered because it was made by, I want to say it was Red Storm, but the PC version was done by Grin, and that's like a game, like, it's the most fake-looking game ever made because it's full of, like, realistic light, like, ray trace lighting before that was even possible, and, like,
So they
screened
Killzone
it.
2'd it.
Yeah, they Killzone 2'd it, basically. I'll tell you what they didn't Killzone 2, though, and not moving from last week at number 8, is a PC game. One of the biggest PC games at the time.
Sid Meier's Civilization 4.
It is not Sid Meier's Civilization 4.
Is it? No, Half-Life 2 was 2004, so that would be way late at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. This is a game that appears a lot during bullet time. I will narrow it down. It's an EA game.
Their weird online-only reboot of SimCity. No, that was 2013.
No, that's 2013. But you're on the right lines with the Sim City stuff.
Oh, Sims 3.
Not Sims 3, the other one.
Sims 2.
It is the Sims 2 by Maxis and Electronic Arts. Because people fucking love the Sims.
They do.
Feel like I earned that one.
Yeah. Well, let's see if you can get this one. Up one place, number 9 this week from Eurocom and Vivendi Universal Games is a kids game that is a tie-in to a film this year. Kids animated film.
Madagascar.
It is not Madagascar.
Ice Age.
Ooh, it is Ice Age, but do you know which one?
2?
I'll give you that, yeah. It is Ice Age 2, The Meltdown, the video game tie-in to that.
Hey.
Now, here's an exciting one at number 10. Now, funny enough, I took a screenshot that goes all the way up to 17 so I could get Urban Chaos in it. So if you want to go up to 15, we could, but we'll
I'm
see
curious.
how we pan
Yeah,
out
this has been a very weird and eclectic week.
Well, here's the most eclectic one so far. At number 10, down 5 places, is from Electronic Arts. It's a film tie-in game for a film that came out like 30 years earlier.
Oh, is this The Warriors on PS2?
No, that was Rockstar and... was this Reservoir Dogs?
No, because that was the film that came out like 15 years earlier. And funnily enough, that was published by Eidos.
That terrible Scarface game?
It is not Scarface, because that was from Vivendi.
I'd fight you on that. I like that Scarface game.
Yeah, Scarface is okay. No, this is such a weird game to think about from EA, that this was when like film like they went fucking bananas with film licensing.
Is it a Dirty Harry
Did they do another
tie-in
Goonies game?
It's not the Goonies and it is not Dirty Harry.
Some kind of Indiana Jones title?
No, so here's the thing. You'd think it'd be like an action thing like Indiana Jones, but it's not. This is like considered like one of the most famous films of American film history. And they turned it into a third-person action game.
Easy
That's
Rider.
Citizen Kane, get a game?
It's not Citizen Kane. It's not Easy Rider. You're both gonna kick yourselves.
I am gonna kick myself because I should know this. 30 years. I'm trying. So, film from the 1970s. Famous.
Yeah, maybe.
American
Yeah, really
cinema.
early 70s. This was new, like when Lucas and Spielberg, like the new wave of like directors. Easy Rider is part of that as well.
Is this
but no,
Lego Star Wars?
It's not a Lego Star Wars. No, like this is.
Oh no, you said it's not an action. Yeah.
No, it's not an action. It is a. It's a film that was adapted from a book that then became like the career starter of one of like America's premier film directors who doesn't really make a lot of stuff anymore. But this made his bed basically in regards to how famous it is.
Is
I don't know, did they make
this
like
the Godfather?
Snake. At number 10 this week is The Godfather from
There
EA
it
Redwood
is.
Shores and Electronic Arts.
That was a good
Well
game.
done.
That was a good
Well
game.
earned.
Yeah.
Black Hand Edition on Wii. That was interesting, but I
Oh
had
yeah,
the
because they added
No.
motion controls.
It's funny Wii anecdote actually, because to date the episode, Dragon's Dogma 2 microtransaction discourse is doing the rounds at the moment. This is the first game I remember playing purely single player that had microtransactions in it. No one ever talked about it because it just went totally under the radar. But you could spend like marketplace Xbox points for in-game currency, and there was no reason to do that because you could make money hand over fist in that game pretty easy.
In fact, I think we make that joke on another episode of Bullet Time where it's about, because I think I said, and what is their in-game currency? Is it Godfather points? And he said, no, it's American dollars. So you're basically turning dollars to dollars, which is pretty good.
Pretty much. Well, there's an in-between because, you go from dollars to fucking whatever the Microsoft thing was. You know
Microsoft
that.
points, yeah.
Yeah,
Dollars to
Microsoft
Microsoft
points.
points back to dollars again.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, let's take it up to 15, but I'll make this a little bit easier because at number 11 this week, Snake, you guessed it earlier. It is FIFA Street 2 from EA Canada
wow.
and Electronic Arts is at number 11. Now, here's a funny one. At number 12, new this week, is another film-to-game adaptation. It is not an action film in any shape or form, but it is, weirdly enough, one of the biggest films of 2006.
The biggest films of 2006 and not action.
Yeah, God,
No.
I'm out of my depth. What?
I will make it a little bit easier. This was a film that was adapted from a really popular book at this time. that
Eat,
like
pray, love the game.
I wish it was Eat, Pray, Love the game, but it's not. A film starring Tom Hanks.
Oh boy, why am I bad at this? Oh, I don't.
The book.
Not a film buff.
No,
okay. The
I'm
book was
going
written
through-
by
I'm just going through,
Darren
like-
Brown, if that helps.
Oh, the Da Vinci Code.
It is the Da Vinci Code, developed by the Collective and published by
Wow.
2K Games.
You know, I don't like the culturally like, oh, you know, no culture effect joke. Man, the Da Vinci Code, that is pure 2006, and it just stayed there.
I mean, Snake, did you even know that it got a sequel film?
No.
Now, Angels
I
and
just
Demons.
Literally all I remember is a Bill Bailey joke about how, like, you just order Dan Brown by weight. Like, I'll just have a kilo of Dan Brown.
Dan Brown, please. No, he was like fucking John Grisham's ghost was just spinning like at 1,000 RPM in his grave because like Dan Brown became the airport guy. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be on a 15-hour flight. I'm just gonna buy this piece of shit to feed.
Yeah, just
on this flight.
Occupy my brain for as long
I'm
as
gonna
it can.
I'm gonna read the world's dumbest book about the world's smartest people. Let's see how we get on with that. Number 13, I'll skip past as well because this is Football Manager 2006, the competitor to Championship Manager. But that's made by Sports Interactive and published by Sega. This is I want to say one of their first games as.
It's
Sports
funny they're
Interactive.
behind Championship Manager at the moment because that table's gonna flip in time.
Oh yeah, they are going to overtake them pretty soon and pretty largely. But here's an exciting one. At number 14 this week, we were talking about Xbox 360 games all the way through this episode. Probably, I don't think this is a launch game, but it is launch window, but like one of the defining games of the 360's launch window.
Call of Duty.
Well, it
2.
ain't fucking Cameo, done.
Oh no, it ain't Cameo and it ain't Call of Duty. What can I say without immediately giving it away?
Viva
got
Pinata?
Not Viva Pinata, no. Made by a third party. Which, yeah, it's not made by Microsoft themselves, made by a third party. A really big PC franchise that then eventually made its way over to Xbox and was like this big demonstration of, hey, look at the games that we can have on our console.
Oh, is it Fear 2?
Oh, it's not Fear 2.
Crisis 2?
It's not Crisis 2 either.
Condemned.
It's not Condemned Criminal Origins either. Not an FPS game, although it is first person.
Missed.
What else do we do in
Shot
first
in the
person other than shoot?
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like that's all.
Well, like you can play like role playing games, which is what this is.
Oh, Oblivion.
Yeah, I'll both give you a point because
Yeah.
at the same time it is The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion from Bethesda and 2K
I forgot that was
Games.
that early in the 360's lifespan.
Yeah. And again, like this was a big set because obviously Morrowind was so huge on the Xbox of like, hey, we can have PC games on our console, and then this was like, hey, check it out, guys, we're gonna have like day and day where the 360 is gonna have a huge RPG, and it came out and it was fucking dog shit. Although people have now turned around pretty big on that game and they're like, actually, no, it's not bad, it's okay. But I don't know where I stand on Oblivion. That's because I'm not a massive fan of those games. So.
It's like it is the one Bethesda game I played and got into, and then I played Skyrim and was like, I don't need to play another one of these. I think I've had my fill for life, and then I played Fallout 3 and I felt the same, even though it had guns. Yeah, I think for some people you can get your fill of that for as long as you want. For me, I had my limit, and it was in 2006.
Yeah. Finally, at number 15, speaking of hitting their limits, down from 13th place last week is a PlayStation 2 exclusive game that factors a plastic peripheral.
Oh, so it'll be an iToy game.
It
Or
could be an
a
iToy game,
sing-
but it's not an iToy.
A SingStar or is it Buzz?
It is a Buzz, but which one?
Pop Quiz?
There's not pop. Actually, I think, I don't know how many of the Buzz games you know. So, you know what? I'll give you the point because it is Buzz, ! The Big Quiz from Relentless Studios and Sony Computer Entertainment. That's how you know this is a UK quiz. Where the fuck is Buzz going to appear on,
There's a bunch of Americans going, what the hell is Buzz?
Now I understand the sole reason you wanted to go to number 15.
Yeah, it's because of
Yeah.
it was because of Buzz, and it was mostly because of the Da Vinci Code. Because I was just like, what an era where you could have you remember they had like the Saw games on PS2, and they would it was basically just shit mini. It was like Incredible Crisis style mini game collections.
Incredible Crisis. There's a game not enough people mention.
Incredible Crisis is good.
Literally the only person I've ever seen talk about Incredible Crisis is Chip Cheesem. That's it. Like,
Being chased by corridors by a boulder and then having to balance on a pole on the side of a building.
And then
You have to take a dance routine.
Yeah, before you do that, you do dancing as a work bonding measure. Actually, you know what? Just for fun, because I already told you what 17 is, we'll do 16. Just because I blasted through 2, and then this will finish off the quiz forever and ever. So number 16, up from 19 from last week, is a sports game from EA.
Wow, a lot of sports, a lot of novel adaptations, a lot of film adaptations, and
If it's a
Eidos.
slow down and it's EA Sports and it's going to be something like NBA or...
So I'll tell you this, it's not a ball game. So it's not Madden, it's not FIFA, and it's not NBA.
Well, that
And it's
ruins
not
my next guess was going to be NFL Street, so that's gone.
No.
Not a ball game, but a sport.
I'll say this, Nate, this is a game that appears a lot, or has appeared a lot on episodes that you've been on in the 2006-2005 crossover. This was also a big 360 demo game.
Is it Burnout?
Oh, it's not Burnout now. And I would call that a racing game rather than a sports game.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
I kind of equate the two, perhaps wrongly,
It's fair
time
enough.
to time.
Sports without a ball. That's...
Is it Skate?
It's not Skate, unfortunately. That's a few years after 2005. That's
a
2016.
Tony Hawk, then?
No, because that was made by EA.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so ball, not a ball, but a sport.
So that's what I'm getting hung up on, because
and it's not
guys just love
racing.
playing with balls.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And they record it and they put it on their VHS tapes, after Dragon Ball.
My mind's like, well, you play golf with a big stick. I'm like, yeah, to hit a ball.
That's true.
It all comes back to balls, so I can't imagine a sport without balls.
You can't get balls out of your mind. This is no balls whatsoever.
No balls. How do you have a sport without them? That seems.
I mean, this sport does pretty well without any. I'll say that.
Oh,
much.
is this like a maybe like a downhill domination or?
Ooh, it's not like a downhill racing game or whatever. This is
So SSX is out as well, then?
no racing, no balls.
No racing and no, but those are like all the sports.
Oh, well, not this one.
Is it like an Olympic tie-in? Was there Olympics that year?
It's not an Olympic tie-in, but this is a sport that is at the Olympics.
It's not Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games because that's Nintendo.
Yep.
Wow,
Although I think they were coming out by 2006.
I would have thought so, yeah. I'll give you this clue as well. It's the third in a series of games.
Third in a series of a sport that neither of us can guess. That's fascinating. Not
Developed by EA Chicago.
That's.
You say that like it helps.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know that. I'm familiar with EA Chicago's work.
EA Chicago.
Wow,
Oh,
I'm
now that you tell me that.
I'm amazed at how blindsided I am because
we're going to be fucking pissed when he tells us. That's
yeah,
the thing.
and we're like, oh,
I
of
want to
course.
get this because we're going to be mad.
Is it? No, it's not a game about running. Is it?
There isn't a game about-
Huh?
Sorry. It isn't a game about running. No.
Okay, it's not the parkour game on PS2 no one has heard of, which would
No.
be bizarre.
So, right, sports that aren't racing, that don't have a ball. So automatically things like skiing and shit is out.
It's fight night. It's fight night.
At number 16 this week, after 20 minutes of
Only
deliberation,
Only my favorite sports.
Fight Night Round 3 by EA Chicago and Electronic Arts for the
What the
Xbox
fuck?
360 and other consoles.
That hit me like a punch in the face.
Like a punch in the face.
Yeah. That was the one that
I
had
hope you're
Mike
proud of
Tyson.
yourself.
That was the one that had Mike Tyson in it, right? Fight Night
That's
Round
right.
3.
And
Yeah.
it was a big 360 demo because it had realistic deformations and also introduced the twin
thumbstick movement,
combat
yeah.
system.
Yeah. I just remember because you'd have big sweaty knockout zoom in.
Yeah, and their teeth
Yeah.
pushing to the side and stuff. Pretty cool.
Oh my god, I am stunned at myself that I couldn't think of boxing for like 10 minutes.
I knew he'd be annoyed when we got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snake, while you're seeing stars, like you got a big knockout to the face. Sam, thank you very much for coming back to the podcast. Always a pleasure. And I suppose while you're here, is there anything you would like to promote?
Probably most relevant to this episode is I've got a couple of hour-long videos on the Batman Arkham games. At the time of recording, Asylum and City are done with massive videos. By the time this goes live, Arkham Origins will probably also be done. So if you just search Webster Arkham Asylum on the YouTubes, you'll find me.
Excellent. Snake, now that you're coming down from figuring out it was Fight Night Round 3, anything you'd like to shout out?
I shouted out.
You shouted out Loot last time. So.
Yeah, or next. I'll shout out a channel I found recently, and I quite like their video on the weird old dating show Geek Love. The Cellar. I can't remember what those symbols are called. You'll look up the Cellar Taigen Moon. I'll link it in the chat we're using, and that
Excellent.
give you an idea. But they do interesting videos. They have a very, very long expose on a kind of old gaming mag, which is very interesting. And
kind of relevant to all the gaming mags that we talked about during this episode. I mean, funnily enough, apart from PS whatever, actually no, 1UP's gone as well. Yeah, pretty much Edge and like Games TM are the only magazines still being made.
Yeah, they
Is
do
Retro
a lot
Gamer
of.
still going?
Oh, actually, yeah, Retro Game is still going as well.
I think if I was trying to describe, they do a lot of kind of essay videos on kind of gaming ephemera. Like, here's a breakdown of, hey, here's an old game mag. Hey, here's like this old kind of controversy. They do a few straight reviews, but you know, it's a lot of kind of little odds and ends history of gaming. You know.
Cool. As per usual, I've been James. You can follow me over on the website formerly known as Twitter at Hotcider, HOTCYDER. If you like this episode, please rate and review. And if you really like this episode, you can help support the creation of new ones over at Hotcider on Patreon. What's going to be the keep blasting meme that we do at the end of this one, then?
Keep tolerating. No.
Keep showing
shielding.
0 tolerance. Keep zapping?
Shielding.
Oh,
Keep shielding. Yeah, there we go.
Keep shielding, folks.
Keep
There you go.
shielding.
Keep shielding. God. All right.
Sounds like a
everybody-
COVID reference.
This podcast has been made possible by Dylan Robinson, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Jesse Garasha, Kevin from Pixellet, Mouse, Twyla27, Valerie B, VG, and the Hot Cider support tier. If you'd like to help with the production of episodes and gain access to extra content, consider supporting over at patreon.com/hotcider. That's HOTCYDER. A special thanks to Max Coburn for the Bullet Time theme tune.